Chapter 221. The farm, the dining room in the main house. It was stinky, rotten, dirty, and dark. The round wooden table was filled with food made with reference to a dark cuisine recipe. The food was at most medium rare, and various liquids were still on the surface of the food. There was even some kind of living creature wriggling in the body of the large turkey placed in the center. Victoria's family of 4 was eating here. The 4 of them had different forms. Farmer Murphy Victoria wore a checkered shirt and a butcher's apron. He also wore a worn linen headgear. When eating, he needed to stuff food into the mouthpiece at the bottom of the headgear. He seemed to have been cursed, so he had to wear the headgear at all times. Mother, Balin Victoria, was nearly 3 meters tall. There were a number of fingers of different lengths on her palms and feet. Her fingers moved very quickly, and she ate quickly by pinching and biting. Her mother's head was full of white hair, and her skin was mostly wrinkled. She was seriously aging. She gave people the feeling of a centenarian, which seemed to be caused by some kind of aging curse. But this kind of aging did not affect her agile movements at all. Eldest daughter, Trish Victoria, was the most normal-looking person in the family. Under her blonde hair, she had the face of a female university student in her early 20s. Just as the mission description said, she was youthful and beautiful, except for a few freckles. She was wearing denim overalls, and she ate quietly with a knife and fork in her hand. She did not refuse any form of food, and her appetite was unusually good. Youngest daughter, Rosie Victoria, looked like she had just reached adulthood, but her skin was made of cloth, as if she had been cursed. Rosie's mouth was also sewn with many lines for some reason. When she opened her mouth, these lines would be stretched open, and the inside was full of scattered teeth. Even her tongue had 2 structures, which made it convenient to chew and eat. Cursed house. That's right, this family had always lived here. The arrival of the Dark Age gave them an even more terrifying curse power. Even if the Great Lord sent people to try to expel the family, no matter how many people were sent into the barn, they could not come out. During the meal, the eldest daughter, Trish, blushed a little. She suddenly stopped eating and said, "I saw intruders in the barn just now. They didn't seem to be the Great Lord's men. One of them was a bespectacled boy who looked very elegant. He's my type." Her mother, who was sitting on the other side with her head on the ceiling, said, "Trish, do you need me to bring him back?" "No, I'm already an adult. I can do these things myself. I want to get to know you first." Her sister, Luo Shi, also became curious. Sister, what kind of guy was he? Is it very stylish? He's big sister's type. Little sister, don't get any ideas." After saying that, the elder sister, Trish, actually stabbed the fork in her hand into her younger sister's forehead. Drip, drip, drip. Liquid flowed out from the wound. However, his sister was not angry at all. She even had a cheeky smile on her face. "I know. Didn't a group of people come? Maybe there's someone I like." "Sister, you're so stingy." Trish pulled out her fork, rolled up the black spaghetti on her plate, and continued eating. "Sister, tell me, what kind of people are there?" Following the topic brought up by the elder sister, the whole family began to talk and laugh. Only his father remained indifferent and ate quietly. Among the lush cornfields, the small group of people was slowly moving towards the farm area. Han Dong used his little magic eye to see through things and avoided the scarecrows as much as possible. However, after walking less than 10 meters, the spider's silk tie to everyone's wrists was pulled slightly. It was Mia who was in charge of bringing up the rear. She seemed to have something to tell everyone. "There's something wrong with these corn too. A small portion of the corn is cursed. Once you touch it, you'll be infected. Let me lead the way." Oh, Winley was kicked out of the front row before she could even warm up her seat. She could only follow behind Han Dong. As for the task of bringing up the rear, it was all left to the magician Demps. When Mia brushed past Han Dong, she softly spat out 2 words, "Scumbag." Han Dong did not care about this title and asked, "Mia, if we want to avoid the cursed plants, we'll run into the scarecrows, right? Do you think it's better to avoid the plants or the scarecrows?" "Avoid the plants." Mia's answer was very decisive. "Then I'll leave it to you." "Scumbag, I don't want to talk to you. I'm only in charge of bringing you out of the cornfield. As for the matters in the farm, I won't try my best to help." With Mia leading the way, after avoiding several cursed plants, they happened to run into a scarecrow. It was different from the traditional dummies made of straw. The scarecrows here were meticulously made. First, a 4-meter-tall wooden cross was used as a fixed support and was firmly inserted into the ground. Then, the scarecrow was fixed on the cross. Han Dong stared at the scarecrow and said in a low voice, "Do you still remember the missing peasant servants mentioned in the mission? It seems that they were all caught and brought here to work." That was right. Those that were inserted into the cornfield were all real scarecrows. Using the peasant servants as the prototype, their bodies were fused with the straw. So much so that straw overflowed from their orifices, eyes were normal, and there were also a lot of traces of straw stitching on their skin. Once the scarecrow caught an intruder in the cornfield, it would shoot out straw vines from its body, binding and squeezing the target dry as its own nutrients. Even if the organs in these peasant servants' bodies were almost replaced by straw, they were still alive. That was the function of the curse. A scarecrow's curse sealed their souls forever in this body to protect the cornfield. At the same time, a large amount of straw immediately shot out from the scarecrow's body and quickly wrapped around Mia and Han Dong, who were the closest. Just as the two of them were about to fight, Blacksmith's grip Pa, Wen Li, who was following closely behind Han Dong, reached out and gripped it. There was actually a gravity compression field formed in her palm. It forced the scattered straw vines to be compressed together and held tightly by Wen Li. She pulled hard. Even if the scarecrow's body was strengthened by the curse, it couldn't resist this brute force at all. With such a pull, there was a feeling of all the internal organs being pulled out. However, the target was only the scarecrow. After the skin was broken, a large amount of straw, stained with body fluids, was pulled out. There were no fancy moves. She just relied on brute force to kill the target. Chapter 222. Gravity Domain? Wen Li, how did you do that? Abel, who was following closely behind, was shocked. Wen Li's every move was far beyond the level of her peers. This time, it was not limited to brute force, but it involved a deeper level of gravity. That grip just now, this is a technique that my master taught me. It is usually used in the forging process to shape weapons or armor. My master said that a mold is a mold. The essence of forging is a process of creation, but molds limit the effect of imagination. He asked me to use as few molds as possible and create equipment with my own hands. Okay, Abel had a general understanding of the group of teachers in the Night Academy. In the mechanic class, on the surface, there was a group of technicians in charge of mechanical manufacturing, but on the deeper level, there seemed to be a stubborn old man who did not care about worldly affairs and was in charge of forging. Now it seemed that the old man should be Wen Li's master. They continued to move forward. The nature and attack method of the scarecrow had been figured out, as long as the danger of the curse could be eliminated. It was not too difficult to deal with it. Whether it was Wen Li's brute force or Demp's fire magic, they could kill the scarecrows. Of course, there were more dangerous situations during this period. When they encountered about 5 scarecrows, Wen Li directly faced them and bombarded the scarecrow's body with a punch. Due to the excessive force, the cross inserted into the ground was uprooted. Unexpectedly, a large number of cursed vines rose from the ground and wrapped around Wen Li's body. This blacksmith girl was not invincible. The moment she was entangled by the vines, a curse connected by small black words immediately spread on the surface of her skin. Even if Wen Li's physical fitness was excellent, it was inevitable that the curse would appear after a period of time. Her pores enlarged, and several straws grew out of them. The tingling sensation spread throughout her body. When she saw that her teammate was affected by the curse, Mia immediately took out a mortar and made a curse resistance potion on the spot. After drinking the potion, the tingling sensation immediately disappeared without a trace, and the curse also faded away. Mia was unhappy that this blacksmith girl was chatting intimately with Han Dong, so she said with a cold face, "Your body is much better than the average person. Otherwise, with so many curses attacking at once, I'm afraid half of your body would have turned to straws. Your skin is only affected. Be careful next time. When dealing with this kind of curse, try not to come into direct contact with it. Who knew that when we didn't care about these details at all? She only knew that this witch, Mia, had concocted a potion to relieve her of the pain of the curse. He immediately stretched out his muscular arms and hugged Mia tightly. Thank you, Miss Mia. You're amazing. I won't be so reckless in the future. I'm really sorry for wasting such a rare curse potion. All right. Being hugged so passionately by Wen-Li, Mia's acting became problematic for a moment. She did not know what kind of expression and words she should use to respond. Their gazes and expressions didn't match, making them look very out of place. Besides, there were no scarecrows in the cornfield. There were also some normal farmers who were in charge of farming the cornfields. They held pitchforks and stabbed at the squad. These peasant servants were only under control and did not have the ability to infect the curse. They were immediately pushed to the ground by Wen-Li and freed them with a single punch. Sometimes, some locusts would suddenly appear, gnawing at the skin with their sharp teeth and entering the body to spread the curse. For this reason, Han Dong released the plague. Once this kind of defenseless small locusts approached the squad, they would be infected with pathogenic bacteria inside and outside. They would fall to the ground and be unable to fly. Some small, colorful mushrooms would even grow on the surface of their bodies. Just like that, the squad cooperated with each other and cooperated with Mia to lead the way. They successfully came to the core of the cursed space, the farmyard where Victoria's family lived. In the farmyard stood a creepy and strange main house. The main house was large, more than 1,000 square meters. There were various abrupt designs, and the internal structure of the building should be very complicated. The moment they looked directly at the main house, Han Dong's little magic eye faintly felt that 4 terrifying eyes were peeping at them. At this moment, Mia, who was standing at the front, slightly lifted her mask and released a little of the spider curse. The change was limited to the face. On Mia's forehead, there were spider compound eyes that could see deeper things. Scumbag, you should be able to see with that eye, right? Yes, Han Dong replied. A rare solemn expression appeared on Mia's face. What a strong curse aura. It's more troublesome than expected. And the curse of the family of 4 seems to be connected. Even if we completely destroy one of the cursed spirits, it will be reborn after a period of time due to the binding effect of the binding curse. This kind of binding curse is rare and not something an ordinary person can control. Strange, this family was just an ordinary farm worker when they were alive. Where did they learn the advanced curse? Han Dong replied, could it be that after the Dark Age came, a high-level existence gave them the ability? Otherwise, after such a long time, the great feudal lord would have driven this family away long ago. But they still remain here. Due to the hidden danger, Mia did not care about trivial matters and began to discuss seriously with Han Dong. It's possible. According to the great feudal lord's arrogant attitude, he should not allow outsiders to exist in his territory. If there is a high-level existence that is related to this family, then the problem is troublesome. What do you think? Let's not consider the high-level existence for now. According to your experience with this kind of binding curse, Mia, how do you think we should deal with it? We need the team to act separately and eliminate the farm owner's family at the same time in no more than 15 minutes. Once anyone survives and exceeds the time interval, the other family members will be reborn due to the curse. Han Dong fell in a deep thought and considered the battle plan. Mia continued to ask, what if a high-level event happens? I will naturally deal with it. Han Dong's simple and indifferent answer stunned Mia, and her cheeks turned slightly red. Han Dong turned to talk with Captain Abel for a while to confirm the action plan. For this operation, we will enter the farm area in 4 groups. I will be in one group. Captain and Daoud will be in one group. Mia and Wen-Li, you 2 girls will be in one group. Demps will also be in one group. I will stay outside for a while, and you will enter from different areas. Remember, you must keep a sufficient distance from each other and try to be completely separated. Mia will explain the related curse matters, and we will act in 2 minutes. Han Dong said this, but he secretly gave different notes to the members of the team. It seemed that he had other plans. Chapter 223. Han Dong had actually taken many details into consideration when he came up with this grouping arrangement. Among them, Demps was a key point, because when they first entered the cursed space, the eyes that were peeping at the door of the barn were not observing the team. Instead, they were staring at Demps. Whether the other party was interested in Demps's appearance or his unique magic characteristics. As long as it was an interest, it could be used. Moreover, Demps was a smart person. He could understand Han Dong's meaning very directly. As for whether the follow-up would succeed, it would depend on Demps's personal ability. Just like that, the team members enter the main house area from different side doors according to the group formation. Only Han Dong stood quietly in front of the main house with the Dozier Crow. Looking at the big house, he seemed to be thinking about an important problem. Dozier Crow, say, if there is a huge hatred between the farm owner and the great feudal lord, can we use it? Nanny, caw. Because the consciousness was not connected, the Dozier Crow was completely incoherent. However, it would be very troublesome to use it. After all, the resentment of this family is tied together with the curse. It is basically impossible to talk to them calmly. We have to find an entry point. Most of the chips are on little brother Demps. I hope he can help us a little. Dozier Crow, come with me. Bring people. No, The Dozier Crow seemed to smell danger and would rather die than enter the farmyard. The death that it said before was not reflected at all. Coward Crow, if you don't want to go in, stay outside alone. There are still a lot of scarecrows in the cornfield that have not been dealt with. They will find you soon. When Han Dong said that, the coward crow man hurriedly looked around and shivered. It was simply a disgrace to the life outside the city. At this moment, caw. The Dozier Crow cawed while touching the back of Han Dong's hand with its beak, as if it wanted to convey some message. As the consciousness was connected, bring people. I have decided, rather than die, it is better to give it to Sir. Oh, how do you use it? I can also be considered a mature crowman. Although I'm far from your level, I can still provide you with some help. Your right hand seems to be very powerful. Give me your left hand. Han Dong was curious and quickly used his other hand to rub the crowman's head. But just as he placed his left hand on the crowman's head, a dark aura seeped out from the crowman's feathers and wrapped around his left arm. The Dozier Crow's body immediately became distorted, as if it was being sucked on a Han Dong's arm. In the blink of an eye, the Dozier Crow had completely transformed into a crow feather glove that covered his left arm. The glove was about the same length as the arm, and it fit the shoulder area perfectly. It was smooth and black. On top of that, it was luxurious, exquisite, and had a dark Gothic design. When Han Dong put it on with only one hand, it gave off a coquettish feeling. The black leather that perfectly fit the body could adapt to all kinds of changes on the arm. On the front knuckles of the glove, other than the extremely comfortable leather glove, there was also a sturdy black beak on each finger. However, the design of the crow's beak was not for attacking. Instead, it could draw energy. There was also another design that was very eye-catching. On the outside of the glove's forearm, there was a layer of retractable wings. All the feathers on the Dozier Crow were gathered here, and Han Dong could control the wings to spread them out. This was the Dozier Crow's so-called use. This way, when worn on Han Dong's body, the two of them could directly communicate with each other. It really works. That's great, bring people. When you use me later, remember to supply me with energy. Otherwise, if I use up all the energy I carry, I won't be able to maintain this form. All right. Han Dong looked calm on the surface, but he was a bit excited on the inside. When this glove fit on his arm, it gave off a completely different feeling from wearing normal equipment. It was like the difference between a living thing and an inanimate object. Han Dong didn't know where to place such a pure living equipment in the Holy City. But Han Dong was sure of one thing. At least among the apprentice knights of the same level, no one could command or enslave a polluting wild monster as their own equipment like Han Dong. Han Dong wouldn't bring foreign objects to the prison laboratory for the time being. Han Dong wasn't willing to take even the slightest risk. Therefore, he couldn't get the detailed parameters of the glove. Dozier Crow, how do I use this glove? Hee, it's actually not very useful. I'm still just a single-headed crow man. Well, I can provide you is flexibility. You can try to inject energy into the wings when you bring people. Well, I'll try. Whoosh, the wings spread out. For a moment, Han Dong felt as light as a swallow, and even felt like he could fly. There was no need to flap his wings like a bird. He only needed to inject energy to make his body feel like it was floating. Han Dong, who was born as a scholar, saw the clues of this living equipment at a glance. Gravity offset? The more energy I inject, the better the effect of counteracting gravity. However, it takes too much energy to fly. My current seed isn't enough to support it. However, once the talent tree is formed, the quality of energy will change. I might be able to achieve individual flight with this thing. Han Dong was still a little excited when he thought about it. Dozier Crow, you crowmen should live together in groups, right? In the Gain Forest, we crowmen are all in the same tribe. If there's a chance in the future, take me to your tribe. The chief will be very happy to bring people to our tribe. Well, Han Dong's lips curled up slightly. He seemed to have thought of the design of the next special equipment. Okay, let's go in. It seems that a little girl has her eyes on us. As he said that, a blonde girl wearing a bow headdress, a pink ruffled skirt, white stockings, and small leather shoes ran through the front yard. Ha! Hee! The strange sound echoed in his ears. The little lowly stood at the door of the wooden house on the left side of the main house and waved at Han Dong, who was at the door. She seemed to have something special to show Han Dong. Han Dong didn't reject the invitation and went straight to the wooden house where the little lowly was standing. In the main house area, the members of the team also had their own encounters. Abel and the Berserker dog were in the corridor by the window on the first floor of the main house. They bumped into the farm owner Murphy, who was holding a giant logging axe. The girl team formed by Mia and Winley also bumped into their mother, Miss Bailin, who was carefully taking care of the plants in the gardening area on the other side of the first floor. His strange fingers were so excited that they creaked because of the arrival of outsiders. As for the magician Demps, who was arranged to act alone, he was attracted by a gentle voice to the bedroom on the second floor and met a blonde girl sitting in front of the dressing mirror. Chapter 2:24. He didn't activate his little magic eye. Han Dong went to the door of the little lowly's cabin. Acting alone, Han Dong's fighting power was the strongest. Moreover, in the cursed space, there was no need to worry about his ability being exposed. He could release 2 anomalies at will. However, Han Dong also had other plans. He came to the cabin in a friendly state. Up close, the wooden cabin was much larger. The interior of the cabin was designed like an exquisite dollhouse. All kinds of dolls of different sizes were piled up in the 150 square meter cabin. Even the space to stand was quite sparse. In fact, this kind of simulated doll arrangement itself had a strange feeling, uncanny valley effect. There were more than 100 dolls piled up here. All of them stared at Han Dong with their round crystal eyes. Candles in the grooves on the wall emitted a pale yellow light, illuminating the place. He felt that one of these dolls was alive. Hee. A girl's laughter was heard. Because all the dolls in the cabin kept smiling, it was difficult to determine who made the laughter. However, Han Dong found the source at a glance. Even if his little magic eye wasn't activated, it could still help in the dark. It could still distinguish between living and dead objects. Come and sit. Han Dong looked at the corner where a blonde doll was sitting against the wall. Wow, you can recognize me? The doll's eyeballs began to move, and its fingers twitched up and down. Imitating the process of a dead object being given life, it slowly got up, held a small black lace umbrella, and walked to the small wooden table in the center of the room. Han Dong happened to be standing on the opposite side of the wooden table. The girl even poured a cup of black and white latte for Han Dong. Little brother, please sit. Okay, because Han Dong didn't have any hostility. This lowly also had a smile on her face and didn't have any intention of attacking. After all, their family had been here for 100 years. The loneliness and curiosity made her very interested in Han Dong. "Little brother, what's your name?" "My name is Rosie Victoria. I'm the youngest girl in the family." "Warren Nicholas." "Brother Warren, were you and your friends sent by the Great Lord? What is your purpose in coming to the farm?" "Because Dad and Mom are conservative, they don't like outsiders. If you don't have good intentions, you might die." Out of sincerity, Han Dong sipped his latte and showed a satisfied expression. "We are—" Han Dong hesitated for a moment and changed the lines he had prepared beforehand. He was going to directly state that he was opposing the High Lord. It was a little unnatural to say it out loud like that. "We came from a distant human city. When we passed by this manor, we were attacked by the feudal lord. We planned to hide in the barn for a while. I didn't expect that I would accidentally intrude into your territory." Little Loli did not doubt Han Dong's words at all. "The Grand Lord will attack every outsider. Little brother, you guys are quite capable to be able to escape." At this moment, Luo Shi, who also took a sip of coffee, seemed a little uncomfortable and reached out to touch his back. Oh no. Since no one has come to the farm for many years, the Great Lord seems to have given up on invading us. I heard from my sister during lunch that a little brother came to the farm. I was a little excited. I was a little too anxious when I changed my clothes at the last minute and a few threads were not tied tightly. Can I ask little brother for help?" "Okay." Han Dong got up and went behind the lowly girl. It was not as simple as the lines on the back of the clothes falling off. Instead, the lines on the back were falling off. The lowly's whole body was made of cloth as if it was worn. Her back had a structure similar to shoelace holes, and there were lines running through it to tighten this set of cloth skin through knots. At present, there were several lines that were tied wrongly or loosely. The workload was not small. However, Han Dong did not hesitate too much. He half-knelt on the ground and carefully took care of the lines on the lowly's back. For Han Dong, who used to line, culture, and inoculate cells every day in a laboratory, this kind of delicate work was naturally not a problem. Because some lines were tied wrongly, they all needed to be loosened. For a moment, the skin on the lowly's back cracked open about 10 centimeters, revealing the lowly's inner essence. The hairy flesh and various blackened organs were sewn together by some unknown method. More importantly, such a disordered body structure could actually allow the lowly to use the various bodily functions of a normal person. It was obviously the effect of the curse. Facing such a scene, Han Dong did not feel uncomfortable at all and carefully went online. After a while, all the lines were inserted into the corresponding small holes and the skin was retied. When Han Dong returned to his seat, the lowly seemed a little embarrassed. Her eyes flashed with a like expression. Han Dong smiled faintly. Part of his plan had succeeded. Whether it was after entering the house or out of respect for the various dolls, he did not show any expression of fear or rejection. His expression and actions when he drank coffee normally, or when he talked with this goth lowly, and the subsequent behavior of tying the rope for her, all seemed very natural. Do you think this lowly is easy to be deceived? This family has existed for at least 200 years, and many details are very important to them. If Han Dong had any sense of disharmony during the conversation, it would be seen through and immediately listed as an intruder. This was not a little lowly, nor was it a large armored tank that could be entered by pressing F. The disguise ability must be enough to penetrate the heart of this lowly of curses. Han Dong had achieved his goal here. Next, it was time to watch Brother Dempsey's performance. The gloomy main house, previously mentioned, Sister Trish in front of the dressing table was still quietly combing her hair. Demps stood at the door and did not make any extra movement for the time being. At present, the first floor of the main house was constantly filled with the sound of things being broken, smashed, or torn. There was even a constant vibration. In addition, the battle between the two groups and the farm parents had begun. However, in the room of the eldest daughter, Trish, on the second floor, the two ignored the noise and sat on the edge of the bed, talking. Demps showed his erudition and knowledge, talking about some things that Trish was very interested in, making Trish's eyes filled with admiration and worship. Coupled with Demp's handsome face and gentlemanly behavior, her cursed heart unconsciously beat faster. She even had the thought of pushing this little brother on the spot. The two completely ignored the situation downstairs and talked deeper and deeper. In terms of disguise, Han Dong was right. This brother Demps was a great genius. Chapter 225. Can you arrange for us to meet your family? Han Dong, who was in the doll's house, and Demps, who was in the dormitory on the second floor, asked this crucial question almost at the same time. Sure, they received the same reply. Correspondingly, the daughters of the two farm owners both made requests. Little brother, can you accompany me? I've been on the farm for a long time, and I'm really lonely. If you can make my father agree, I'm willing to leave with you. The little lowly supported her chin with both hands and looked at Han Dong with a longing look. Wait for your father to agree. Okay. Han Dong, led by the little lowly, went to the main house. Coincidentally, they bumped into Farmer Murphy. He was also the source of the curse in the wheat field. His strength was higher than any other member of the family. Even if Abel the 100 Beast and Dao the Berserker, who were the strongest in close combat in the team, fought him head-on in this half-hour battle, the two of them were at most in a stalemate. They basically could not gain the upper hand. There was only one reason. This farm owner would continue to strengthen as the battle progressed. Currently, iron nails and wires grew on the surface of the cut flesh of the farm owner. These iron nails could fix the flesh wounds and increase his defense. His overall strength would continue to increase as the battle progressed. If Spider-Mia was here, she would definitely be able to see some clues. That was the way the farm owner committed suicide, was not just to be engulfed by the fire, but to pierce his entire body with iron nails soaked in a curse solution. After doing all this, he would be engulfed by the barn fire. Nail curse. It gave the farm owner a powerful curse power. Even if Abel avoided the swing of the axe blade, the strong airflow caused by this power would still cause Abel to lose his center of gravity, and he had to stabilize his center of gravity at all times. There could not be any mistakes during the battle. Otherwise, if he was hit by the axe, it would be troublesome. There was one more thing. Han Dong secretly wrote on the paper that he had secretly given him. He told Abel to pay attention to his limits during the battle and to focus on dodging as much as possible. He also tried to explain his position and friendly intentions to the farm owner. Because of this restriction, Abel and Dowd, who was used to fighting, felt very uncomfortable. They're finally here. Smelling Han Dong's scent, Abel heaved a sigh of relief. Daddy. They were forced here by the High Lord and wanted to communicate with us. Don't be angry. They mean no harm. The lowly doll stepped forward and hugged her father, trying to stop him. Who knew, Pa? The farm owner grabbed his daughter's head and lifted her into the air. Whoosh, the axe swung down. One of the younger daughter's arms was thrown into the air as a warning. The farm owner obviously didn't trust the intruders and planned to live here forever. This scene made Han Dong frown. The crow wings on his left arm unfurled slightly, and he pulled Abel back. Crack! The axe fell on the spot where Abel had been standing. Not only was the floor split open, but even the ground below showed deep marks from the axe. Abel couldn't help it. Warren, I know you want to use this family to get more information about the High Lord, but this farm owner has completely lost his mind, and he even attacked his daughter. Let's deal with this normally, okay? Find a way to gather this family and get rid of them together. Wait a bit. Them should be done soon. If we still can't calm this farm owner's anger, let's get rid of them together. Okay. Using the characteristics of the griffin boots and chrome gloves, he tried his best to circle around the farm owner and stall for time. Crack, crack, crack. About 3 minutes passed, and the situation became more serious. The farm owner once again underwent an evolutionary mutation. Crack, crack, crack. The meat wriggled, and a thick arm fused with meat and iron nails grew from the farm owner's back to help him hold the giant axe. The speed and strength of the axe increased. The axe swung down. The wind caused the wood shavings in the room to fly everywhere, and Han Dong, who was closest to the axe, lost his balance. Dad, no. The youngest daughter, Luo Shi, who had lost an arm, ignored the danger, and hugged the farm owner from behind again. It was not easy to find a little brother who could buckle her belt for her, and she did not want him to become the storage in the fridge. But the axe didn't show any signs of slowing down. It aimed at Han Dong, who lost his balance and swung down. Warren. Abel was shocked. He knew that Han Dong wouldn't be able to dodge this attack. At this critical moment, pure seed energy was transferred into the Chrome-In gloves, and the wings on the side of the gloves fully unfurled. A faint shadow of a Chrome-In appeared behind Han Dong. A few spiritual black feathers also appeared around Han Dong's body. The equipment's special effect was fully activated, together with his crow characteristics. Whoosh! While he lost his balance, he used an ability similar to flying to quickly drift backwards. The falling axe only managed to cut open a shadow. Now it was Han Dong's turn to make a decision. It would be dangerous if he delayed any longer. At this critical moment, footsteps could be heard in the hallway. His eldest daughter Trish and Mother Bailin walked out one after another. Dimps and two other female team members also followed behind. It was obvious that the plan had succeeded. Dimps had asked his eldest daughter Trish to successfully convince her mother. Murphy, these young people might really be able to help us kill the despicable Great Demon Lord. I think we need to sit down and have a chat with them. Otherwise, if we continue to wait like this, we'll never be able to complete our revenge. Mother Balin's persuasion was effective, making the irascible farm owner stop chasing Han Dong. But, whoosh, the farm owner actually turned around and cut off Balin's legs as punishment for interrupting him. It was obvious how high the status of the farm owner was in the family. However, the farm owner didn't make any follow-up moves. He dragged the axe and left the area. The persuasion was successful. His youngest daughter Luo, she picked up and reattached her severed arm, saying happily, "Yeah, that's great. Dad seems to be willing to communicate with you guys. Hurry up, don't let Dad wait too long. Let's go." Dimps and his eldest daughter Trish were very close, walking at the front. The team members followed closely behind. As for Mother Bailin, who had her legs cut off, she crawled at the back. She didn't care about her broken legs at all. Due to the effect of the curse, they would grow back after a while. His eldest daughter was sticking close to Dimps, and his youngest daughter was also clinging to Han Dong. Captain Abel frowned and asked, "While we were fighting hard and worrying about not hurting the farm owner, you guys couldn't have been flirting, right?" Han Dong pretended not to hear and didn't answer the question directly. "Captain, I'll handle the negotiation later. Try not to talk." "Okay." Chapter 226. The Main Hall. During the 30 minutes of negotiation, the farm owner was playing with nails and wires the entire time, inserting iron nails soaked in cursed potion into his body at different points to strengthen his curse. That's about it. When the time is up, I will send a Chrome-In to inform you. When the time comes, you just need to follow our team and sneak into the castle on the hill. Ding, ding. The farm owner was still inserting iron nails into his body. Everyone was waiting for his reply. Even the family members didn't dare to speak at this time to avoid angering the farm owner. They waited for about 10 minutes. The farm owner had inserted a bucket of cursed iron nails into his body. The atmosphere slowly became heavy. At this moment, all the members of the newbie team more or less made some movements, ready to switch to combat mode at any time. The next second, the farm owner lifted the giant axe with one hand and pointed it in a certain direction at home. This action surprised Mother Bell. "Dear, are you sure you want to do this? Tell me what you think. I'll pass it on to these young people." Belle, who was more than 3 meters tall, crawled in front of her husband and put her cheek in front of the linen hood. A strange tongue came out of the linen and entered Belle's ear, using this method to carry out a conversation between husband and wife. After listening, Belle arched her back and crawled in front of Han Dong. "My husband said that if you can complete the cursed trial in the basement, our family is willing to agree to your request." After saying this, Yi Zichen smiled. Belle then quietly moved closer to Han Dong's ear and whispered, "My youngest daughter, Rosie, seems to like you a lot. Also, you were able to stop my husband's rage. You meet one of my important criteria for choosing a son-in-law. It's very dangerous down there. I suggest you don't go down there. If you're willing to be my son-in-law, I can communicate with my husband and have him deal with this matter in a different way. No need. Please tell Murphy that if I meet the requirements, please keep your promise. Sigh. What a pity. You're a good young man. Mother Bell stopped trying to dissuade him and quickly crawled to where the axe was pointing. Turning the decoration on the wall, the stone door opened to reveal a secret passage. As soon as the secret passage was exposed, a curse in the form of words spread out along the wall. This secret passage should lead to the source of the curse. Why was the farm owner's family able to be resurrected in different forms of curses? The reason should lie below. Han Dong was about to step forward without any hesitation. Slap! Someone reached out and grabbed Han Dong's wrist. It wasn't his younger daughter, Luo Shi. Instead, it was his classmate Mia, who was wearing a half-mask. Let me go with you. Han Dong didn't answer. Instead, he glanced at the farm owner. After all, the farm owner wanted Han Dong to go down alone. As the farm owner nodded slightly, Mia immediately smiled and followed closely behind. This scene made Luo Shi very unhappy, and even the thin threads on her back were broken. However, because of the farm owner, she didn't dare to make too many moves. As the two of them entered the secret passage, the stone door was immediately blocked. If he wanted to come out, he could only pass the curse trial below. It was time to switch to their private world. Mia hurriedly stepped forward and tightly hugged Han Dong's arm. She was both happy and worried. You're really something. You actually had a way to communicate with an undead whose consciousness has been affected by the curse and resentment. As long as it hasn't completely lost its consciousness, there's still room for communication. It just so happens that we have two actors in our group. Dimps, San's performance was even better than I expected. By the way, what do you think about what's down there? The moment the stone door closed, Han Dong had already fully opened his magic eye to make sure that the curse on the wall wouldn't affect him. Mia also extended her long spider legs and opened up her curse domain to resist the different types of curses here. This should be what we discussed before. There might be a high-level existence who gave the farm owner the curse. The source of the curse might be the same as my own spider curse. If there really is a curse-type hybrid demon imprisoned down there, how should we deal with it? Han Dong coldly replied, I thought that you would be able to determine what's down there through these textual curses. Since you can't guess, let's go down and take a look. Mia immediately pouted when she heard this. High-level curses are all presented in words. Okay? Even if it's a cursed object, the textual structure can be discovered. Oomph. Do you think everything is as simple as you think? Han Dong didn't say anything else. There was a staircase at the end of the secret passage that led downwards. They followed the staircase to the basement. Judging from the style, this place seemed more like a sacrificial room. All kinds of strange sacrificial drawings were drawn on the walls. The thick curse aura even condensed into words in the air. Han Dong's forehead was already dripping with sweat. Once his seed's energy was exhausted, it would be unable to resist the curse and would be completely invaded. It was different from what they had expected. He didn't see any cursed life forms below, nor did he see any high-level existences as he expected. The source of the curse turned out to be a dark gray metal bell placed on the sacrificial altar. Is this the source of the curse that gave the Victorians the curse? The farm owner's test should be for me to control this bell, right? After all, if I want to fight against the Great Lord, all plans are useless if I'm not strong enough. It seems that when the former farm owner Murphy was in charge of the wheat field, he dug out this cursed object from a deep pit and had a certain understanding of the curse. That should be the case. Mia stared at the bell with greed in her eyes. Mia, don't pretend in front of me. You're a person who puts your own interests at the top. You won't take the initiative to enter dangerous areas. Isn't this your goal? Go and take it. Han Dong directly pointed out her goal. Mia didn't pretend anymore and took off her mask. With Mia as the center, another cursed power gushed out. Between the ground within 2 meters, a large number of small spiders drilled out, completely isolating the curse. Mia stared at the bell with a somewhat morbid look. I never expected it. I actually encountered the curse vessel in this place, and the quality is good. Just as Mia was about to step forward to take it, she was gently pulled by Han Dong. Let's make it clear first, this thing belongs to you. But in the next training operation, you have to listen to my command. Okay, I'm very obedient. After Mia took off the mask for a while, she had undergone a large-scale change. Her fingernails were completely dyed purple, and they were 20 centimeters long. Snap! She pinched the bell. Ring, ring, ring. Then, before Mia could do anything, Fong Chio's expression changed. The bell rang by itself. Chapter 227. Mia, I didn't move. This curse vessel moved on its own. Be careful. This is a sensory curse. Oh no, it's too late. Ring, ring, ring. The sound of the bell was ear-piercing. Since the bell had been heard, it meant that the curse had invaded the body through the hearing. For a moment, Han Dong, who rarely came into contact with curses, immediately felt a physiological discomfort. Blurg! His body shook, and he knelt on one knee. A large amount of filth was vomited from his mouth, and there were bursts of stabbing pain in his organs. The curse was invisible. Even if Han Dong's body was protected by a layer of fungus, it was still useless. Only the latent G-virus could resist the erosion of the curse in another way. When the organs were decaying due to the effect of the curse, the G-virus could stimulate the potential of the cells and perform rapid regeneration, making the regeneration speed equal to the speed of the curse's withering. It could barely support the body, but it couldn't go on like this. Han Dong could only use a stage of the potential of the G-virus. If it continued for a long time, it would be unable to regenerate due to energy dissipation. It could even cause genetic disorder due to excessive stimulation of the cell's potential. In serious cases, it could lead to death. The curse strengthened, and the pores expanded. The filthy liquid flowed out from the enlarged pores, and the situation was quite bad. The Dozu Crow sent a message. Bring someone. I'm afraid that only our tribe's Crowman elder can remove this curse. You're not in good health. Please leave here quickly. Han Dong was indifferent and looked at the stone platform in the center. Even if his mouth was full of filthy and smelly liquid, even if his teeth were loosened in a large area, Han Dong still spoke in a normal tone. Mia, is this all you can do? The seemingly normal and simple question touched Mia's heart. Some special memories flashed in Mia's mind. She used to live in the civilian area and was treated inhumanely all day long. The words she heard the most were similar from her parents. What's the use of you? Just die quickly. In an instant, Mia's pupils were completely dyed black and purple. Lines of text-shaped curse lines covered her body, and the spider curse was further activated. Even if Mia was pretending to be weak, her strength was not as high as imagined. The level of curses that she had truly come into contact with was actually not that deep. When he further activated the curse, the relevant text covered his entire body. If Mia did not control it well, she would be devoured by the curse and turn into a mindless spider. She would be no different from the wild monsters that lurked in the forest. For a moment, the curse released by the bell was actually suppressed by Mia. The ringing of the bell gradually stopped. At the same time, the curse that had covered the entire underground space was also retracted back into the bell. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the words on the ground and on the walls slowly returned to the bell, just as all the curse-type characters were retracted. Hiss, 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 strands of white spider silk were spat out and tightly wrapped around the bell. A single spider silk was tied to Mia's waist to complete the suppression of the curse vessel. Phew! Han Dong heaved a sigh of relief and leaned against the wall, panting heavily, relying on the G-virus's controllable regeneration ability to slowly replace the body eroded by the curse. Right at this moment, a dangerous aura suddenly appeared. Mia, who released the high-level curse, suddenly tilted her head. She stared at Han Dong with a large number of compound eyes, overflowing with murderous intent. The reason was very simple. Han Dong's words just now made her a little out of control. The four hairy spider legs could penetrate Han Dong's body at any time. However, Han Dong did not make any defensive moves. He just quietly stared at Mia. The most simple eye contact was to convey emotions and information through the pupils. Slowly, Mia's purple-black pupils gradually dissipated. Ah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I couldn't control myself just now. When Mia's consciousness returned to normal, she quickly put on the mask. She sealed all the spider curse and made a pitiful expression to apologize to Han Dong. She then used a round table here to make potions for Han Dong on the spot. Han Dong shrugged. Through this incident, he roughly understood Mia's background. I thought you could completely control the spider curse. It seems that you're just a vessel. Mia brought the freshly ground herbs over and answered a little embarrassedly. Oh, I'll control it sooner or later. Drink it. I increased the amount of nightmare grass. It can quickly remove the curse effect in your body. At the same time, I also mixed in the golden fern. It can heal your internal injuries. After drinking Mia's herbs, the remaining curse in his body was immediately removed. His body's functions recovered to 80 to 90%. It had to be said that Mia was very talented in herbology. She could be considered an all-around support. Han Dong got up and left. When he brushed past Mia, he whispered, "Well done." Hearing the rare praise from Han Dong, Mia's face was full of excitement. It seemed that she was even happier than when the witch praised her. She hurriedly stepped forward and held his arm. She no longer cared about the previous matter. "Thank you. I'll be obedient. During the training, you can ask me to do anything you want." Okay. Just as the two were about to walk out of the cursed chamber, Han Dong noticed something and suddenly turned around. In an instant, little mystic, I seemed to see the figure of a black-robed person. In the blink of an eye, the surface of the black robe was covered with dark, golden, curse-like words. "What's wrong?" When Mia asked this, Han Dong could no longer see any figure of the black-robed person. "Nothing. Let's go up." The stone door opened. When they returned to the main house, the grumpy and irritable farm owner actually knelt in front of Mia. The other family members were still the same. It was all because of the bell hanging on Mia's waist. If Mia could control the bell, then she would be their master. Ring, ring, ring. When Mia spontaneously rang the bell, the curse-like words were released from the inside of the bell and wrapped around the family of four. There was a feeling of receiving. The farm owner's family, who originally belonged to the cursed life, turned into different curse-like sources and were absorbed into the bell. The farm owner, Murphy, turned into a small iron nail. The mother, Belinda, turned into a piece of rotten fingerbone. The eldest daughter, Trish, turned into a human face. The youngest daughter, Rosie, turned into a rough puppet. At this point, this cursed vessel was completed and turned into a complete Victoria's butler bell. Using it could summon the cursed house. With the extension of the summoning time, the energy consumption would gradually increase. Such a cursed vessel was also a chaotic item in essence. It was very valuable. Since it was controlled by Mia, it naturally belonged to her. Phew, this is the best result I expected. With the assistance of this family, we can speed up our exploration of the High Lord's house. Deputy Captain, you planned to do this from the beginning? Blacksmith, when Lee was still a little confused. Although she had helped many times in this incident, she always felt that she was doing odd jobs. She didn't touch the root of the incident at all. In the end, the curse incident was completed by the deputy captain. Well, use as many resources as you can. After all, this is not the final mission. Winley asked puzzledly, "Isn't the final mission requirement of the wheat field area to end the curse? Can this be considered completed? Mia has already turned the source of the curse into her own, and the curse in the farm has dissipated. Isn't this also a way to end the curse of termination? A series of mission systems formulated by the knights are flexible and changeable. If you only look at the surface, it is difficult to solve the fundamental problem. It will also waste a lot of time on some unnecessary things." Winley instantly felt that her IQ was suppressed. She inexplicably felt stupid and could only scratch her head helplessly. The curse was lifted. The group left the curse space. However, there was a fierce battle sound coming from the town not far away. Chapter 228. Board or Curse, Advanced Investigation Case. It took a total of 5 hours. The team entered the barn area at 2 in the afternoon. Dusk had just ended and night had fallen. Although it was nighttime, the fog would become thicker during the night and evil activities would become more frequent. Captain Kinney also left the cursed space immediately and pretended to be guarding the entrance of the barn the whole time. He did not enter the barn at all. Actually, Kinney was in the dark the whole time and observed everything that happened in the farm owner's house. He was amazed by the way the team solved the mission. Not bad. To be able to come back alive, you newbies are the best in the past few years. Kinney did not talk about the sounds of swords clashing in the town for the time being. After all, he had just been secretly protecting this group of young people and had just left the cursed space. He did not know the cause and effect of the sudden attack. He was waiting for a vulture in the intelligence department to bring him information. Captain Kinney, what's going on in the city? Abel wanted to go back and help when he heard the sounds of metal clashing, the cries of monsters, and some magic beams and burning fires. At this moment, the vulture flew back with a scroll in its claws. A small team has officially entered the castle area. Due to the threat to the great feudal lord's castle, a ghoul riot event has occurred in the manor. Since this is a training event, the night watchers will not interfere too much. You will have to deal with it yourselves. A team has already entered the advanced mission of the castle area. Han Dong was shocked. Although he knew that the most elite team of the third year would not be weaker than his team, he did not expect them to be so fast. Your current points have reached a pass, and you have completed the ultimate mission of a certain area. When the ghoul riot in the town has subsided, someone will come to you and provide you with more in-depth clues. After saying that, Captain Kinney used a flying ability to head to the communication building in the center of the town. After all, the progress was a little too fast. Logically speaking, the castle area should be opened after the 4th day of the training. Han Dong and the others immediately returned to the town to confirm that the house had not been invaded by ghouls. Vulture Kinney saw Deputy Captain Hydra sitting on a leather chair in the communication building and smoking a lady's cigarette. Occasionally, someone would send her approval documents. Vice Commander, what's going on? Why is the progress so fast? This group of third-year fellows used a monopolistic method to quickly accept and complete low-difficulty missions yesterday. Today, through the method of clue trading, they used the various basic clues in their hands to exchange for clues that directly touched upon the castle area from other teams. He went deep into the manor at the fastest speed in theory. Let this training advance to the next stage. Do we need to take measures to contain them? Hydra, on the other hand, was calm. There's no need for that. The difficulty of the castle area is not something that can be solved by their little tricks. Don't worry. Based on the assessment of the guild leader, I, and the hourglass, the combination of this great lord and the castle on the hill could be ranked in the top 3 of the final missions in the past 20 years. Things weren't that simple. Although the grand feudal lord was under the influence of the clock-bearer and couldn't see us outsiders, he was still paying attention to the movements of these young people. Such an existence that is close to the hybrid demon level should have the confidence and means to deal with this group of young people. All right. Vice Guild Leader Hydra suddenly changed the topic. Kinney, I heard that the group of newcomers that you were in charge of took first place in the rankings yesterday. They actually suppressed the third-year team. That's unheard of. I heard that the student of the Crow was also in there. Is that the reason? Yes. This student of the Crow has enough insight into the big picture and details. Currently, he has led the team to completely conquer the wheat field area. As expected, it's because of this kid's leadership. It's not easy to catch the eye of the Crow. They have already conquered the wheat field area. Did the Night Watchers provide them with clues for the next mission? They need to wait until the zombie attack is over before the Night Watchers will find them. That's great. I want to meet this group of newcomers. Kinney, I'll leave the matters here to you for the time being. Kinney immediately frowned. This, Vice Guild Leader, that's not good. Guild leader Keeman asked me to keep an eye on this group of young people to ensure their safety. When Kenny's words came to this point, he felt a cold touch along his calf. Unknowingly, a large number of poisonous snakes had already stuck to his calf. Hyde stretched out his hand and hooked Corporal Kenny's chin. He pulled him closer and asked in a low voice, "Kenny, do you think that me managing this group of newcomers will put them in danger? Do you think that I can't even manage a group of newcomers?" "I wouldn't dare. I'm just talking about guild leader Keeman. Since the guild leader isn't here, I'm the leader. If you have any dissatisfaction with my opinion, you can report it to the guild leader at any time." Kenny tried his best to lower his head and replied in a calm tone, "Since the vice guild leader has arranged it this way, I'll be in charge of the communication room." "Vice guild leader, you'll be in charge of the newcomers team." "Yes, it should be like this from the beginning." "Guild leader, you know that I hate to deal with documents." Kenny nodded. "Then I'll take over the position of the temporary commander. I'll manage the collective training in my own way." "Up to you." Hydra handed over the relevant important documents and even the commander's medal to Kenny. She then walked out of the communication building with seductive steps. Kenny secretly clenched his teeth with a vicious expression. "I need to report this to the guild leader when I go back. Hydra is too self-centered. She might cause a huge problem for our behemoth knights in the future." Even though he was annoyed, since Kenny had taken over the responsibility, he immediately started working seriously. Compared to Hydra, he was naturally more responsible. He added a lot of rules at the last minute to stabilize the progress of this collective training. Let's hope that this group of youngsters will fend for themselves. Hydra definitely won't care about the lives of these youngsters. In the town area, ghouls kept emerging from the ground and wantonly attacked the visitors here. Since every residence was set up with a barrier, it was easy to defend and hard to attack. They only needed to slowly think of a way to kill the ghouls inside. Han Dong naturally knew where the ghouls that kept emerging from the ground came from. This number was just a drop in the ocean for the ghoul factory that was buried deep underground. "Let's go." Wherever Han Dong went, the ghouls would automatically avoid him. This was because Dr. Swollen, who was in charge of the ghouls, was one of Han Dong's underlings. Just as the team successfully returned to the residence and closed the door, tap, 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 the sound of high heels accompanied by an unfamiliar and cold aura came from the staircase. Chapter 229. She had a snakehead eyebrow print, waist-length black hair, and a slim figure. She wore a scarf, a nose stud, and a silk dress that revealed her waist. She had a dark yellow skin tone. When this woman walked down the stairs in her high heels, there were many spotted poisonous snakes following her. "Deputy Leader Hydra." Abel Ryan immediately knelt down on one knee. This woman, who was almost on the same level as his grandfather, made Abel very wary. In the Behemoth Knights, Abel could communicate with any knight, but this woman was the only one he could not. His animal instinct made Abel feel an inexplicable sense of danger every time he saw this woman. Hydra, who was standing at the corner of the stairs, had an arrogant look on her face as she looked down on everyone. "I swapped places with Kenny at the last minute. Now, I'm in charge of the safety of her new team. Not bad, little brats. Your investigation progress is one of the best. Even some of the trainee knights who have been here for 2 years can't compare to you. Since you have completed the ultimate mission of this area, I will give you the next step. But before that, you, come with me." Hydra was pointing at Han Dong. A sense of uneasiness lingered in his heart. Hydra was the deputy leader. According to her position in the Knights, she was on the same level as Mr. Black and White. Moreover, snake creatures were not bad in terms of perception. Being alone with such a person, Han Dong's secret was at risk of being exposed. My aggressive behavior actually attracted the deputy leader. Although it was a matter of time, I didn't expect it to be so fast. Since things have come to this, I might as well give it a try. If I can hide from such a person, it will be more convenient for me in the future. At this moment, Abel took the initiative to suggest, "Deputy leader, can I come with you? Nicholas and I are both team managers. If you have any orders or requests, it's better for us to discuss it together." A devilish smile hung on Hydra's face. "Little behemoth, if you want to come, then come. Since it's like this, you can come too." Since there were more people, Hydra also had her eyes on a handsome young man in the team, Demps. In fact, Hydra was only interested in Han Dong at first. After all, he was Crow's student. However, when he saw this group of newcomers, she was immediately attracted by Demps's British style and unique magician temperament. To Hydra, who lived in the Behemoth Nights, such a quiet and elegant young man was a rare sight. In fact, even in the library, a magic student like Demps was rarely seen. Due to young brother Demps's intervention, the originally anticipated situation occurred. It only took Hydra 10 minutes to understand the team's current progress and the allocation of members. However, Han Dong and Abel, the two captains, came out of the room. That was right. Hydra's attention was completely diverted, leaving Demps alone in the room. Han Dong couldn't help but sigh. Little brother Demps is quite something. Abel put his hand on Han Dong's shoulder and said softly, "Demps, this person has an indescribable feeling. Compared to him, I still prefer you, Nicholas." Han Dong laughed awkwardly. "Huh, Captain, your words sound a little weird." They waited for about an hour. Then, Hydra, the vice captain, came out of the room. Her arrogance and pressure were somewhat restrained. There was a hint of joy in her eyes, and her cheeks were faintly flushed. We saw this scene. Han Dong's focus was not on the vice captain, but on young brother Demps, who came out of the room with a normal face. In his heart, he said, "Demps Martin, this person must be taken care of, is a troublesome person." The vice captain began to talk about serious matters. As the castle area has been opened in advance, as long as the team completes the area mission, they will be allowed to enter. At that time, the collective training mode will change. The way to obtain points, the way to accept missions, and the way to promote will all be changed. It will be carried out in a real-time linkage manner. Opportunistic methods will no longer be applicable. The number of points you can obtain will be directly related to your overall strength. This is a detailed instruction manual. You can take it and study it yourselves. When and how to enter the castle will be up to you. I will secretly protect your safety to a certain extent. As she spoke, Hydra's gaze deliberately stayed on Demps for a while. Then, her body split into a large number of poisonous snakes and left everyone's residence. Along with the invisible pressure and cold aura, she disappeared. Phew! This vice captain is really scary. Captain Kenny, who was in charge of us before, although he looked fierce, I could see that he was still very good to us. But this vice captain is a little different. Blacksmith Wenli was trembling in fear. She tried her best to lean towards the two captains. Castle Area Execution Manual. The castle area is the final area of this collective training. The relevant design, spatial stratification, and overall difficulty are higher than the other areas. There are many areas in the castle area, and most of them are in a sealed state. Only after certain conditions are met will the sealed area be opened. For example, killing core officers, decrypting mechanisms, and obtaining important keys. All missions involving the castle area will be blurred, and the final goal will be to kill Lord Stewart. During the exploration of the castle area, 1. Kill the core officers in the castle area. Each kill will give you 2 points. 2. Decrypting the secret rooms in the castle area will give you 1 point. 3. Killing Lord Stewart will give you 10 points. You will be awarded the Metal Ghoul Slayer. After reading the relevant rules of the castle area, Han Dong was puzzled by the identity of the Lord. The Arab Ghoul was the main body? Han Dong had to confirm it. Captain Abel clapped his hands. Our progress is already fast enough. The exploration of the castle area will be set for tomorrow. This final area will be opened early, so everyone needs to make sufficient preparations. Good. Let's eat. Blacksmith Wenli was already hungry. She wasn't worried about the large number of ghouls patrolling the streets. After all, the ghouls were all afraid of the vice captain. Mia, come with me for a moment. Okay, Mia deliberately replied loudly. She wanted everyone to know that she wanted to be alone with the vice captain. Katja, When the two entered the room and closed the door, Mia immediately began to take off her clothes with familiarity. "What are you doing? Didn't you call me to the room to do that? Besides, I want to compensate you for getting such a cursed vessel. Get dressed." "Okay." Because Han Dong was unusually strict, Mia could only pout and slowly take out the bell. "I need to get information about the Lord from the farmer. I will ask you for the relevant transcripts later." In the blink of an eye, a farmer wearing a linen bag and a checkered shirt appeared behind Han Dong. "What about you?" "I'm going to the basement. I might be back later." Chapter 230. Basement. The wall of corpses wasn't used to block anything, but it was done on purpose. There was only one purpose. This wall of corpses was used to create the atmosphere of an underground cemetery. It increased the amount of energy in the underground area, improved the environment for pathogenic fungi, and was beneficial for the cultivation of ghouls. It wasn't just Han Dong's residence. The basement of other buildings had similar structures, but they had to dig deeper to find the underground tunnel structure. Han Dong's residence was just a wall away from the passageway. In addition, the underground tunnel was heavily polluted, and most people didn't know where it led. Without enough information, no team would recklessly go deep. Han Dong went to the basement alone. He chiseled open the wall that was originally sealed, revealing a tunnel overflowing with pollution. Sure enough, this tunnel leads directly to the ghoul factory. Han Dong walked along the passage filled with bacteria to the end. An indestructible stone wall blocked the path, leaving a small keyhole in it. If some boorish person destroyed the stone wall with brute force, it would attract a tide of ghouls and devour them. As for Han Dong, dong dong dong, he only lightly knocked on the stone wall. After waiting for less than 2 minutes, the stone wall immediately opened. Dr. Swollen, whose head was 3 times the size of an ordinary person, was standing in the inner passage. He slightly bowed his head and rubbed his small hands to welcome Han Dong's arrival. When the detection device detected an intruder and further confirmed that it was the yellow envoy, Dr. Swollen immediately dropped the work at hand. He got on his ghoul mount and rushed to the place where Han Dong knocked on the door. A ghoul mount with a skull full of tubes and a neck bound by an iron chain was behind him. "The Great Lord isn't down there, right?" "No." "Lord Envoy, please come in. Let's talk in my private laboratory in case the walls have ears." The ghoul mount that had been modified was quite good. A cushion was added to the groove on its back to act as a seat, and its speed was comparable to that of an ordinary horse. Inside, a laboratory reinforced with multiple layers of iron doors. A large blackboard was drawn with diagrams of human body analysis. Each area was extended by dotted lines, and the tubes were described in detail by category, forming a systematic human body analysis diagram. The lab table was filled with conical bottles, alcohol lamps, funnels, and beakers. The glass cabinets on both sides of the room contained all kinds of experimental drugs, as well as relevant experimental live samples. Dr. Swollen's desk was filled with all kinds of documents and drafts. Most of them were related to ghouls. However, building a cart behind closed doors naturally had its limitations. Han Dong touched these familiar experimental instruments and couldn't help but recall some things from his life. Is Lord Envoy also proficient in experiments? Han Dong did not answer directly. Instead, he pointed at one of the distillers. "There must be something wrong with your simple distillation device. The distillation and separation effect shouldn't be very good, right?" Purity was very important. You can make a multi-stage distillation device by using a crucible, a distillation furnace, and 2 to 4 U-shaped tubes. In addition, you need to add a uniform heat transfer layer to the entire device to maintain the constant temperature. In this way, the distillation and purification efficiency will be greatly improved. "My lord, Han Dong pointed out the crux of the problem. Dr. Swollen, who was Han Dong's underling, had an extra level of respect for him. "When I completely take over this place, I will find a way to get you some new experimental equipment from the Holy City. The related research will also be changed. There is no need to only research ghouls. The crowmen outside the city and other kinds of evil can all be studied. In addition, if possible, also plan to build an alchemy workshop. Let's talk about it at that time. Hearing that the Lord Envoy wanted to provide him with new experimental equipment to conduct alternative research, Dr. Swollen was so excited that his cerebral cortex kept squirming. Doing ghouls every day was a bit too boring. If it wasn't for the great leader forcing him, he would have quit a long time ago. Good. Thank you, Lord Envoy. Because Han Dong mentioned that he wanted to study Chromin. Caw, caw, caw. The glove on his left arm immediately disintegrated and turned back into a Chromin, showing a pitiful look. Bring people, please don't study me. I'm afraid of pain. This Dozier Crow was truly a coward. It had completely forgotten about its promise to die. Han Dong explained simply, research doesn't necessarily mean tying you to the test bench. It's just a simple inspection to see if there are any areas that can be improved. Oh, thank you for bringing people. If I can take over this place, I can consider moving your Chromin tribe here. Since you have undergone human-like changes, you should be able to adapt to the human lifestyle. I will report back to the tribe leader about this idea. By the way, bringing people. This place is so scary. While Dr. Swollen stared at this Chromin, he couldn't help but imagine a rich grilled crow meal in his mind, drooling. This scared the Dozier Crow to the point that it trembled. Ha, you cowardly crow. He was amused by the Dozier Crow's cowardice and revealed a rare smile. While talking about the issue of taking over, the doctor, who was drooling while thinking about grilled crows, also thought of an important matter. That's right, Lord Envoy. You should have obtained the land deed, right? What land deed? Dr. Swollen was surprised. Lord Envoy actually doesn't know about the land deed. This is a bit troublesome. Lord, are you busy right now? No, I'll plan to officially enter the castle tomorrow. That's good. Let me tell you about the land deed. Even if you kill the Great Lord, you won't be able to obtain the actual control of this place. After all, this is another lord's territory. 200 years ago, humans had already lost control of the world. The land system drafted by the old kings separated the world's regions into different levels and functions. Ordinary forests, fields, wastelands, rivers, etc. were considered low-level lands and didn't require a land deed. As for the former human activity areas, due to the rich resources, they could be developed into a corresponding believer area. This was of great significance to the old kings. Manors, towns, large tribes, and other ordinary and small-scale areas were all classified as mid-level lands and were occupied by the old kings in the form of land deeds. Only by obtaining the land deed would one have the right to rule the area. Currently, the land deed of the Stewart Manor should be stored in the deepest part of the castle's treasury. Its value is even greater than the Great Lord's life. And a land deed is paired with the old king. Saying the name of the old king was taboo. Dr. Swollen could only write him, on his notebook and match it with the withered palm mark. This was to express this old king. Chapter 231. Dr. Swollen took out an exquisite scroll from the drawer and handed it to Han Dong. This is a map of the castle. I've marked each area with a number. The way to enter and the corresponding officers are all written on the back of the scroll. I believe Sir should be able to use it. You're not bad. If it wasn't for the fact that the doctor's head was slightly swollen and soft, Han Dong really wanted to pat him on the head and praise him. By the way, Doctor, do you have any way to obtain the title deed in advance? Han Dong wanted to make a move in advance. If they followed the normal way to clear the training and kill the ghoul, Lord Stewart, such an important title deed might be handled by the knights, and it wasn't something that a group of apprentice knights could interfere with. Once the knights obtained the title deed, this area would be forcibly occupied. The mysterious yellow-robed man's gift to Han Dong would be given to someone else. The manor would definitely be purified by the knights. Han Dong attached great importance to the ghoul factory. With Dr. Swollen as his experimental assistant, once he obtained the rights, he would be able to create a laboratory that belonged solely to Han Dong. The mysterious yellow-robed man was right. He had to be vigilant in times of peace, even if Mr. Black and White was taking care of Han Dong. But the one with the most authority in the holy city wasn't Mr. Black and White, but the Parliament. If the secret was exposed one day, the holy city would no longer be Han Dong's safe haven, and even put a bounty on Han Dong's head. Then it was necessary to have his own residence outside the city. When asked about obtaining the title deed in advance, the doctor was confused. Obtaining the title deed in advance, this is a bit difficult. The title deed is stored in the deepest part of the castle's treasury by the Great Lord. Its value is even higher than the Great Lord's life. If you don't go through the Great Lord, it's impossible to enter the treasury, let alone obtain the title deed in the treasury. Have you been to the treasury? I haven't, because the treasury's door is set in a very secret place. I haven't even seen the door. Do you have any clues as to how to open the treasury? No. The treasury seems to be built to store title deeds. The great feudal lord has sealed off all information about this, so there's no clue. I still have some clues. Han Dong unfurled the map. You said that the value of the title deed is more important than the life of the High Lord, right? The doctor nodded. That's right, the title deed and the symbol of the old king. That's the clue. Such an important item. Even if stored in a safe enough place, the Great Lord might not be at ease, since it was more important than his life. Regular inspections were a must. He even needed to see the title deed with his own eyes. Only then would he feel at ease. What kind of place did the High Lord spend the most time in? Is there a bedroom? Professor Swollen pointed at the center of the map, main hall. The Great Lord's seat is located here. Due to physical or other reasons, he will always stay in the main hall and will never leave. Han Dong chuckled inwardly when he heard this. Wasn't this a clue? Doctor, you should be able to control ghouls to do things for you, right? If I give you a day to use a space in the underground area to replicate the main hall, can you do it? What's the replication rate? A day is enough. I can ask the great feudal lord for some reason and scan the main hall with a detection device. At most, the success rate can be 99%. Hearing this, Han Dong took out a tool from his pocket. It was a living tool brought out from the Destiny realm, Parasite. This is a parasite that can strengthen individuals. It should be able to be used in the research of ghouls. Good stuff. Work hard for me, and there will be better things for you in the future. Thank you, Sir Messenger. Han Dong directly sat on the doctor's office chair. Doctor, is there any information about the mother? Yes. The information is in the bottom drawer. The information is the top secret of the manor. I only have this information because I am responsible for the research of ghouls. Sir, try not to take this information out. Otherwise, my identity may be exposed. Dr. Swollen saw that he could work for the great feudal lord, so he naturally didn't want to die. Don't worry, I won't make any mistakes. Hurry up and do as I ask. Good. Sir, if you need any services, please communicate with the heretics outside the door at any time. They are completely under my management. They have nothing to do with the great feudal lord. Good. Dr. Swollen changed into a more orthodox costume, and his lower body was still tentacle-shaped. The doctor himself was also a heretic. Because of his unusual brain, he stood out from them and became a superior inhuman. As the doctor left, Han Dong moved out the information about the mother and put it together with the unfolded map. I can't let anyone know about the plan to steal the title deed. If I encounter a lack of manpower, I can only ask Mia to help. I have to burn some brain cells. Han Dong immediately entered a state of serious thinking. His left hand flipped through the information about the mother, and his right hand marked some areas on the map with a pencil. He must consider every detail and develop a meticulous plan. The great feudal lord had lived in the castle for more than 200 years. No one was more familiar with this place than him. Any flaw would lead to the failure of the mission. Late at night, in the basement area of the residence, the handsome Demps came here alone with a kerosene lamp in his hand. He stared at the wall with traces of demolition. With the fluctuations of the magic traps he left here, he could confirm that someone had been here. Just as he was about to tear down the wall and go in to investigate, Click, click, click. There was a sound of hard shell colliding with stone. Spider-Woman climbed along the ceiling into the basement. Dimps, where are you going? The vice captain seems to have been here and was led into the underground secret passage by some kind of influence. I'm going to investigate the vice captain's safety. Mia was not interested in this handsome young man at all. She was only thinking about Han Dong. Strange. If that's the case, shouldn't you report it directly to the captain and let everyone go together? Today, you stayed in the room with that viper old woman for a whole hour. Have you become her lackey, investigating the vice captain's secret for her? The word lackey made Dempsey's face change slightly. For a moment, the magic barrier in the underground area was activated, and some ice crystals floated in the air. Mia, who was lying on the ceiling, immediately showed a fierce look. She seemed to be ready to fight with this Demps. What are you doing down there? At the critical moment, a voice came from the entrance of the basement. Han Dong just returned to his residence from the street area. He came down to take a look because he saw the magic light coming from the underground area. As soon as she saw Han Dong, Mia immediately restrained her fierce look and stuck close to Han Dong. Demps gently closed the magic book and stared kindly at Han Dong, who had just returned from the street. Chapter 232. Wah crying. I just feel that this magician is very suspicious, wandering around the basement in the middle of the night and saying that the vice captain is inside. Sob, sob, sob. I don't want to talk to you. After hearing the whole story, Han Dong scolded Mia fiercely. After all, Demps didn't seem to have any bad intentions, but Mia directly called him a lackey. Anyone would be unhappy. Mia, go back to your room and rest. You'll be busy tomorrow. Mia, who was used to changing her expression in Sichuan opera, immediately changed from a sad cry to an ambiguous expression. She deliberately hooked Han Dong's little finger with her finger. I'll leave the door open and wait for you to come over and sleep together. Go to sleep. In fact, just this matter alone. If Demps wasn't here, Han Dong would have liked to praise Mia. At least Mia was really considerate of Han Dong in some matters. She treated people who wanted to inquire about Han Dong's secrets or touch Han Dong's interests as enemies. It's risky to completely treat Mia as a friend. It's not a bad idea to take her as a spider maid after deliberately sending Mia away. Han Dong had obtained a chance to be alone with little brother Dempus. Let nature take its course, and there was nothing deliberate about it. After all, in the temporarily established stealing plan, Demps was an important and indispensable link. Demps was special in many ways, and Han Dong wanted to take advantage of his women's friend point. Tonight, Demps's behavior of going into the basement alone was indeed a little strange. Han Dong deliberately chose to come out from the cemetery and walk back to his house through the street. It was a wise choice. Click. The basement door closed. Han Dong and Demps chose to be alone for the first time in the basement, full of Een energy. This is Mia. Is she your partner? She seems to be very concerned about you. Demps asked first. No, this little witch isn't as simple as she looks. Demps, you should be able to tell, right? Huh. Demps just smiled and used his fingers to tidy up his bangs. Thank you for your help this afternoon. Han Dong took the initiative to express his gratitude. It's nothing. Vice Captain, your ability can help our team get a higher evaluation in this training. Of course, I'll help. However, this Vice Captain Hydra was not easy to deal with. If I hadn't used some of my trump cards to provide her with a full set of services, perhaps I really wouldn't have been able to handle it. Brother Demps, I suspect you're driving. Demps naturally did not understand such internet slang. What car? It's just a full set of services. We mages pursue the fine control of magical elements. Among them, the finger technique is a very important basic skill. Do you want to try? Finger technique? Your car. About 15 minutes passed. Han Dong, who was sitting on the opposite side of the wooden chair, was panting. His cheeks were flushed, his backpack was slightly bulging, his body was tense, and his whole body was covered in sweat. It was too comfortable. The so-called finger technique was actually a massage technique, and it was not what Han Dong imagined. Dempsey's precise control of the finger technique could precisely touch every acupoint. Through the dual regulation of the fire element and water element, the stimulation of the acupoints was strengthened. Han Dong's body could not take it anymore after 14 sets of services. If this continued, it might affect tomorrow's operation. Done. Wow. Demps stopped pressing with his fingertips and gently slid his 5 fingers on Han Dong's back. He evenly released small ice crystals to reduce the temperature and shrink the pores. Finally, the massage ended. For a moment, Han Dong's impression of Demps changed drastically. Vice Captain, your body is a bit strange. Your physique is relatively weak, but your overall blood supply and self-adjustment ability are ridiculously strong. Yes, my physique is terrible to begin with. I can only use the bacteria to build a framework in my body to support my body and function normally. No wonder, this is not a long-term solution. If it continues like this, your body will deteriorate prematurely. I'll naturally think of a way to deal with the problem of your body. Han Dong's expression suddenly changed, and he changed the topic back to the main track. Brother Demps, can you do me another favor? Correspondingly, if you have any requests or need any help during this training, I'll help you fulfill them. Vice Captain, if there's anything I can help with, just tell me. The Vice Captain of the Behemoth Knights, Sonam Hydra. This woman replaced Corporal Kenny's position. She'll definitely secretly monitor everything when we go deep into the castle. I hope that Demps can attract her attention as much as possible in the castle. If this can make it easier for Vice Captain to move, I'll definitely do it. Demps smiled and continued. I only hope that Vice Captain can let me handle all the books hidden in the castle's library area after this is done. No problem. I'll look forward to working with you. Han Dong stretched out his hand and shook Dempsey's hand. The moment their hands touched, a sense of homogeneity flashed through their bodies at the same time. The little magic eye opened on its own without anyone's control. Of course, Han Dong was not the only one who changed. Dempsey's right hand also grew a 6th finger. A 6th finger that looked like an ordinary finger on the surface was actually completely different. He. The two of them looked at each other and suddenly laughed awkwardly. Han Dong suggested, "It's getting late. Why don't we talk about this when we return to the Holy City?" No problem. Let's just pretend that nothing happened for the time being. Okay. The two of them exchanged clockwork codes and returned to their rooms. Han Dong naturally would not go to Mia's room. He lay on the cold wooden bed alone and pondered. Demps Martin. In the library, there should be an executive helping him to hide this secret. Among the knights in the city, there are quite a lot of people who practice secret methods outside the city. Dempsey's finger is at the same level as my little magic eye. This is also good. It will be easier to communicate in the future. Han Dong did not think about it anymore. Today's plan had killed too many brain cells, so he immediately went to sleep. When he woke up the next day, he found that there was one more person on the cold wooden bed. Mia had sneaked in at some point. Now she was like a docile little pet, sleeping on the edge of the wooden bed, trying not to squeeze Han Dong. Thinking about what happened last night, Han Dong did not get angry. He stretched out his hand and flicked his finger. "Pa! Ouch! How can you wake me up like this?" Mia covered her red forehead and stared at Han Dong fiercely. Today's task is very important. This is the relevant arrangement. Take a look yourself. Han Dong passed a piece of paper filled with plans from the doctor's laboratory to Mia. Staring at the words on the letter, Mia was a bit confused. Mia, who was originally angry, suddenly became extra serious. She bit her nails and whispered, "You overestimated me. The risk is too high. Moreover, there are a lot of details to deal with. Once there is a mistake, there is no room for recovery. How confident are you?" 40%. If I can do it, then I will satisfy one of your requests. Mia's interest was immediately piqued. In order to successfully steal the title deed, Han Dong would do anything. Chapter 233. When she heard that she could make any request to Han Dong, Mia's eyes overflowed with purple curses due to her excitement. However, Mia was still quite cautious. After all, Han Dong only agreed verbally, and it was very likely that he would go back on his word. Therefore, Mia thought of ways to set up a cursed contract that could be loaded with words in advance. The contract also had certain restrictions. After the matter was done, she could make any request to Han Dong. However, the relevant requirements were that she must not endanger Han Dong's life and safety, and must not greatly harm her personal interests. With the completion of such a cursed contract, Mia was so excited that she hugged Han Dong. Actually, I really want you to be my boyfriend. However, it may destroy the special relationship between you and the blonde young man. So, I'd better change my request. It's still early, and I'll slowly think of a perfect request. I'll make our relationship closer. Haha. As if you can really succeed. Hee hee. I also need motivation to do things. As of now, the success rate may be increased to about 60%. At this point, Mia gradually calmed down from her excitement. Staring at the series of unconventional requests on the paper, a different emotion flashed in Mia's eyes. She asked, "By the way, what's your purpose in doing this? You're not deliberately trying to prank me, are you? Once I die, the agreement between us will not count, and there will be one less person who knows your secret. If I wanted you to die, I would have done it in the Curse Farm or the Black Hair production area. Why do I have to go in such a big circle? If I'm found doing these tricks under the watch of the deputy leader, I'm afraid I won't be able to stay in the Holy City anymore." Seeing that Han Dong's tone became stern, Mia immediately softened. "Aya, don't be angry. I'm just worried about my own safety. I'll give you an 80% chance of success, okay? Even if my own strength is not up to standard, I'll forcibly remove the curse to increase my strength. I'll definitely complete the mission safely. As long as you can perfectly fulfill the requirements on the paper, you can have anything you want." Just like that, Mia's arrangement was completed. For someone like Mia, who only cared about benefits, she would only be willing to do things with her true abilities if she was given enough benefits. Only Mia, who had Victoria's butler bell, could complete this task. On the third day of the training, the 6 members of the rookie team gathered in the residence hall and discussed the investigation plan regarding the castle district. Is there a need to be so extreme? After Han Dong gave the relevant investigation plan, Captain Abel had a puzzled look on his face. They thought that this plan was too radical and dangerous. It was several times more dangerous than the first day they ascended into the stone well. The castle area was the most difficult area. Han Dong's plan was to split up. The reason was that there were many compartments in the castle area. If they were split into 2 groups and entered different areas at the same time, they could speed up the exploration of each area and obtain the key as quickly as possible. Han Dong tried to explain, "If we can get first place in this training as freshmen, be it the Night College, the 13 Knights, or the Supreme Council, they will all pay more attention to us. It will help our growth, and after graduation, we will be able to pass the selection and enter the Knights College of our choice and take on important positions." Abel didn't quite agree. Getting first place is too difficult. The third-year elite students are above us in terms of overall strength and experience. Furthermore, the castle area was opened by them, right? It wasn't just Abel. The team's blacksmith Wen Li and Berserker Dao also thought so. "How about I give everyone an explanation?" An explanation? Han Dong checked the building and confirmed that there was no one on the wall. The map from Dr. Swollen was spread out. The detailed division of the castle area, as well as the names and positions of each cadre, were marked on the map. For a moment, everyone was stunned. "This map, where did you get it?" Han Dong didn't answer the question. Instead, he snapped his fingers and, "Pa! Kacha! Kacha!" A sound came from the basement. A ghoul that had been strengthened by stone skin quickly crawled out of the basement and slowly squeezed out from the narrow door. Its skin was covered by layers of rock, which greatly increased its defense. Its body was also one size larger than that of an ordinary ghoul. The ghoul's neck was tied with a metal chain. Between its protruding back, there was a groove where a comfortable cushion was placed. Just as everyone was preparing for battle, clang. Han Dong reached out and pulled the metal chain. The ferocious and brutal ghoul actually crawled in front of Han Dong, appearing exceptionally docile. Han Dong even reached out and touched its head, releasing a plague to nourish the ghoul. After the Crow Eater appeared. Such a scene, coupled with a detailed map of the castle area, made Abel feel that he couldn't see through Han Dong at all. Seeing that Abel didn't say anything, Han Dong gave his opinion on the grouping. We'll split into 2 groups and go deep into the castle area. The first group, Abel Ryan, Dimps Martin, Mia Simonovich, and Dao Abdul Rahman. The second group, me, Winley Austin. There is clearly a problem with such an unbalanced grouping. Winley was confused. She did understand why she was in a 2-person team with a vice captain. She felt that it was very dangerous. Apart from us, most of the other teams are made up of 4 people. Captain, the 4 of you, together with the curse bell in Mia's hand, aren't weak at all. It's enough to investigate the castle area. As for Lee and I, we'll enter the castle with you at the beginning. We'll find an opportunity to separate from you midway. Staring at the ghoul mount in Han Dong's hand and the map on the ground, Abel nodded. Okay. However, you must ensure Miss Lee's safety. Definitely. That's right. In Han Dong's plan, Lee was also an important chess piece that couldn't be replaced. When do we leave? In an hour. I have something to do and need to go out first. Han Dong directly rode on the ghoul mount and swaggered out of the residence. It seemed that he deliberately wanted someone to prove that he had the ability to control ghouls. Riding a ghoul, Han Dong came to a building near the edge of the town. The people living here were the 3rd-year team that had a conflict with Han Dong's team at the beginning. Senior Johnny, who was wearing heavy armor, immediately went to greet Han Dong when he saw him riding a ghoul. Junior, what are you doing? Han Dong led the ghoul into the building. He stared at the 4 seniors who were quite strong and said with a smile, Senior Johnny wants to make a deal with you. Han Dong didn't say much and directly took out a map. It was a copy of the castle map that Han Dong made. Some of the information was hidden and changed, but for Johnny, it was still very shocking. Where did you get it? Senior, it doesn't matter where I got it. This map is enough to let you have the first impression and get enough points. In return, I have a small request. It depends on whether you agree to it. Han Dong deliberately glanced at the very shrewd druid in the team who was responsible for scouting and long-range support. Han Dong's gaze made the beast-eared senior tremble. The request is very simple. Chapter 234. After Han Dong listed out a series of requests, the team led by the Pure Meat Cross Army, Johnny Stephen, started a discussion. During the discussion, the girl with the furry beast ears, Michelle, asked a few detailed questions, which were all answered by Han Dong with flawless reasons. There was only one question that Han Dong refused to answer. What benefits do you get from doing this? You don't need to know that. If the seniors aren't willing, I won't force you. I believe there will be other teams willing to take on this simple task. Okay, we agree. This kind of map could indeed help the team gain a great advantage. Moreover, Han Dong's request wasn't unreasonable. All in all, they would definitely benefit from it. Han Dong emphasized, I hope the seniors won't agree but not act. If you don't do as I say, it may lead to my immediate death. As he said this, the black feather glove on Han Dong's left arm disintegrated and turned into a crowman. If I die, this crowman will report the information to Mr. Black and White. I believe the seniors have the chivalrous spirit, so there will definitely be a basic integrity problem. Han Dong didn't waste any more time and left on the ghoul. This kid is so arrogant. The huge Johnny stared at Han Dong's back and muttered. However, this map is very important to us. If the information on the map is correct, we can at least get a good evaluation. This map may be a clue provided by the knights to take care of the newcomers. The ghoul riot hasn't been cleared yet. This kid mixed in with the ghouls and came here to avoid the night watcher's line of sight. In any case, we have a deal, so let's do as he asked. The girl with the beast ears whispered, but why did he ask us to do this? I can't imagine what he will gain from this. Just like that, Han Dong threw out all the chess pieces that he could use at the moment. Next, he needed to perfect the whole plan himself. He couldn't make even the slightest mistake. After returning to his residence, Han Dong called Wen Li to a room. In fact, Wen Li was a little confused by this arrangement. She just couldn't understand why the vice captain would bring her along alone. After all, in terms of intimacy, diverse abilities, and actual combat, Mia should be on the same team as Han Dong. Vice Captain, is there anything you want to tell me? Do you still remember the third-year team that had a dispute with us in the beginning? I remember. How much do you remember? Can you use the large number of items you brought with you to create a set of armor and weapons exactly the same as theirs, including axes, longbows, staffs, heavy armor, and so on? As Wen Li had fought with the meat-shield warrior Johnny before, she had a rather deep impression of him. It definitely won't be a complete restoration, but it should be possible to achieve a 90% simulation. By the way, what does the vice captain want to do? Wen Li tilted her head slightly. She did not understand the vice captain's thoughts at all. Imitating the creation of weapons and equipment was a very foolish act. You don't care what I want to do for the time being. Can you forge it in this environment? I have a soldering iron core. I can forge it now, but due to the lack of tools, it may be slower. It will take at least half a day, or even a day. No, that's too long. Han Dong opened the map and pointed to the blacksmith shop on the first floor of the castle area. If you have tools and helpers, how fast can it be done? In this case, it can be completed in 2 hours at the fastest. That's fine. In that case, our first destination after entering the castle will be the blacksmith area. Wen Li, as long as you stay with me, you won't be in any danger. Don't think too much about other things. After you're done, you can choose any blacksmith hammer or chaos tool from the castle's collection. Okay, I believe in the vice captain. Miss Wen Li, take all your materials and set off. The captain and the others may come back to rest, but we will spend the rest of our time in the castle until the end of this training. Okay, just like that, everything was arranged and the team set off. They passed through the tomb area covered in white fog. They followed the winding path at the back of the cemetery and walked up the hill. The sides of the path were no longer decorated with trees. Instead, there was a stone pillar carved with various hieroglyphs and patterns. The branches of the dendritic structure ran through the top of the stone pillar, and there was a long-abandoned oil lamp hanging from it. At the top of the hill was an old stone bridge. Both sides were covered in white fog, and there were some terrifying faces reflected in the fog, giving people a feeling of a bottomless abyss. They crossed the stone bridge and arrived at the front gate of the castle. The black iron gate, which weighed more than 10 tons, blocked everyone outside. Miss Wen Li used brute force to turn the rotary handle on the side of the gate. The iron gate inserted into the ground gradually rose, and the inside corresponded to the castle's courtyard corridor area. If they walked straight, they could enter the castle's hall area from the main door. They could also choose to go through the courtyard corridor to go to the castle's various side doors and go to different areas. For example, chefs and butchers could enter the kitchen area from the side door. Patrol guards could enter the inner corridor from the side door. Some servants and livestock managers could also enter the servants' rest area from the back door. The efficiency of the third-year team is really high. There was a large number of blood-stained armor scattered in the front yard area. Most of the Lord's guards who were responsible for patrolling the courtyard had been cleared out, and the remaining guards had returned to the castle and abandoned the courtyard area. At this time, Han Dong's hidden eyes had already seen that there was a poisonous snake observing his group from the corner of the wall. For an ordinary team, it would be a very lucky thing for the deputy commander to be personally responsible for the safety issues. But for Han Dong, the pressure was extraordinarily great. Once the land deed plan was leaked, even if Han Dong fought desperately to get the land deed, it would inevitably be taken away by the knights. Han Dong patted Demp's shoulder twice. The latter pushed up his glasses, indicating that it was not a big problem. Han Dong purposely raised his voice, as if he wanted the vice commander, who was secretly monitoring them, to hear his arrangement. Today, we will do a shallow exploration. We will patrol and investigate some of the castle's surface areas and roughly plan the map of the outer surface. Tomorrow, we will proceed step by step and go deep into the castle's inner layer. Captain, the four of you will enter the main hall through the main door. Li and I will enter through the side door. Of course, this was just words. Once Han Dong entered the castle, he would begin a detailed exploration as quickly as possible. The first condition of the plan was to reach the main hall at the center of the castle as quickly as possible and meet with Lord Stewart. Phew, let's begin. Chapter 235. The castle had a total of 4 floors. The main hall, where the Great Lord resided, was located at the center of the first floor. Due to the design, there was no way to reach the main hall on the first floor. There were only 2 ways to reach the main hall. First, when the Great Lord needed to hold an important meeting or needed someone to meet him, he would use the mechanism in the main hall to open a one-way path. Second, go to the secret study room on the 4th floor. On the map given by the professor, it was marked that there was a private elevator hidden in this special study room. As long as the correct password was entered, one could descend to the main hall. This private elevator was mainly prepared for the Great Lord's wife, butler, and nutritionist so that they could visit him at any time. Currently, a large number of small teams were entering the castle. For safety reasons, the Great Lord would not open the one-way path to the 1st floor. They could only go to the main hall through the secret elevator hidden on the 4th floor. Han Dong had already planned out more than 3 routes in advance. If there were any obstructions, he would immediately change his route. On the 1st floor of the castle, other than the main hall in the center, the rest were all miscellaneous areas, including the kitchen, the warehouse, the blacksmith shop, the stable, etc. The first step was to go to the blacksmith shop. The shortest route was through the kitchen and the hidden side door in the food storage room to reach the destination. Of course, they could also choose the corridor area, but it would take a longer journey and they would have to pass through several key areas. The probability of encountering officers was higher than the kitchen area. Miss Li, let's go through the kitchen to avoid unnecessary fighting. Okay, Li was different from other knights. She knew that the battle would continue from the moment she stepped into the castle until the end of the training. But she still did not wear any armor. Looking at her body, there were only 2 items that looked like equipment: a pair of blackened blacksmith gloves and a blacksmith's hammer with an imprint on it. They were very heavy. Even with Li's special constitution, Han Dong was still worried that she would be injured. She was an important chess piece in his plan. I'll lend you this for now. Han Dong took off the coral seal on his finger. Wow, excellent quality fate equipment. You are using a blunt hammer weapon. Through the effect of the sea seal given by the ring, there is a certain probability of activating the turtle shell effect when attacking, increasing the overall defense and providing a damage reflection effect. In addition, this ring can also provide a good magical defense, which can ensure your safety to the greatest extent. Although Li had never been to the Destiny Realm, she knew the value of this equipment. It was enough for an ordinary knight to use. Vice Captain, what about you? I have a lot of equipment, don't worry. Thank you. The 2 of them walked along the courtyard to the back of the castle, where the entrance to the kitchen area was. There was a livestock breeding area in front of the thick wooden door with the words, "Kitchen is an important area. Idlers are not allowed," written on it. There was a foul stench coming from under the low wooden shed. There were a large number of mutated pigs inside. The biggest characteristic of these pigs was that they were fat. They were so fat that their limbs had degenerated, leaving behind only a mud-like fat body. The amount of meat they had was estimated to be 3 times more than an ordinary white pig. These pigs had lost the ability to move, so there was a tube inserted into their mouths, providing them with nutrients at all times. The exploration of the castle has just begun. There seems to be no team in the kitchen area. Wait, there's someone. Han Dong's senses were unusually sharp. He immediately pulled Li and squatted behind the wooden planks of the pig shed. After a while, the wooden door of the kitchen area opened, and a pig butcher walked out from inside. The butcher, who was wearing a pigskin headgear, was close to 2 meters tall. On the exposed arms, muscles and fat mixed together. At the same time, there was a large number of pork slices tattooed on it, as well as P.I., which was easy to identify. Using both hands, he easily lifted the mutated pig that was close to 800 pounds and prepared to bring it back to the kitchen for processing. If the back kitchen is full of these guys, it will be a bit troublesome. Wenli, let's do it. Just as Han Dong made a decision. Unexpectedly, Wenli rushed out first. Seeing this, Han Dong deliberately stayed in the dark to observe, intending to see Wenli's ability to deal with such a huge living thing. After all, in the cursed space, they only dealt with scarecrows. How strong can you be, Miss Wenli? Wenli rushed over. The pig butcher also sensed someone approaching. He threw down the white pig in his hand and grabbed at Wenli with both hands. Just from the size alone, Wenli was one size smaller than this huge, 2-meter-tall pig butcher. But slap. Facing the butcher's grabbing hands, Wenli directly slapped them. Crack, the crisp sound of bones breaking resounded. Wenli's slap not only slapped the butcher's hand away, but also clearly dislocated the fingers and fractured them. She did not use the blacksmith hammer in her hand. Instead, she clenched her left hand into a fist and punched the butcher's abdomen. Her fist completely sank into the butcher's abdomen. Boom! The pig butcher fell to the ground and was gone. The difference between the two was quite obvious. Wenli's strength was even higher than Han Dong had expected. Seeing this scene, Han Dong smiled. Wenli, this chess piece, became even more stable. Vice Captain, what should we do next? We'll do what we did to the white pig before cooking. The processing process has been omitted. Creak. The kitchen door opened. The pig butcher returned to the kitchen. However, in under the butcher's skin were Han Dong and Wenli. Wenli easily carried Han Dong on her shoulders, and Han Dong used his head's imitation ability to perfect the disguise and erase all the flaws. Sure enough, there was still a large number of butchers wandering around the kitchen. These butchers were all from the heathen community. Among them, the strong heathen were selected to be in charge of the kitchen. Rather than calling a kitchen, it was more accurate to call it a pork factory. Fat pigs were hung here through iron hooks. Only the butchers were doing the work, not the chefs. This was because the family members living in the castle area did not need to process the meat at all. Everyone in the family liked the raw pork, so the butchers only needed to process the pork separately. Relying on the disguise ability, they successfully bypassed the kitchen. They arrived at the blacksmith shop, which was only separated by a corridor. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of hammering could be heard. It was different from a normal blacksmith shop. The environment of the blacksmith shop was hot and dark red. There were all kinds of long horn-like ornaments, as well as streams of lava flowing on the ground. It gave Han Dong a feeling of being in hell. This place is quite suitable for you, Togu. Chapter 236. Blacksmith District. It was a medium-sized area within the ancient castle and was highly valued by the lords. This was because it wasn't just the family members who needed weapons and armor. The mutated ghouls produced by the ghoul factory also needed to be equipped with external armor in order to maximize their combat power. Strong armor plates were created and directly branded on the ghoul's skin under high temperature, causing the armor plates to be completely embedded into the flesh. This way, not only would it increase the appearance of the armor plates, but it would also greatly increase the defense of the ghouls. Some iron claws would even be created to replace the original bone claws of the ghouls. At most, they would even create iron skeletons to replace the bones of ghouls with extremely special bodies. This place was under the charge of a family cadre, Blacksmith Atroth. According to the information on the map, he had the key to the higher levels. In addition, Han Dong needed to forge items, so this place naturally became Han Dong's first target area. Of course, the blacksmith was only in charge of supervising the production of the ghoul armor plates, and mainly left it to the apprentices. Each of the blacksmith apprentices had undergone special training. The ones in charge of forging here were individuals with red skin and two metal protrusions on their foreheads, looking like demons. Part of their body characteristics were related to them staying in the hot blacksmith district all day long. As for the metal protrusions on their foreheads, they were the necessary criteria for blacksmith Atroth to recruit apprentices. The selected heretics would have these two metal protrusions imprinted on their backs by Atroth, and the mark of Satan would be imprinted on their backs. This symbolized their identity as an apprentice and showed their half-demon state. Of course, this wasn't a real demon. It was just the appearance of these apprentices that resembled demons. There are a total of 36 apprentices working here. Blacksmith Atroth doesn't seem to be here. Just as well, we can deal with this group of apprentices separately, so the pressure will be less. When Lee, prepare to attack. Attack directly? Vice Captain, don't you need to come up with a plan or something? Winley stared at so many strange demon apprentices and was still a little worried about the consumption of her stamina. There's no need to come up with any plans now. These apprentices were selected by the heretics. Using the opportunity of them forging armor plates on their respective iron drill platforms, we'll quickly deal with them separately one by one. This is to prevent them from getting together and committing mass sacrifice. Winley stared at the 30 or so acolytes who seemed to be quite powerful. She felt a little uncertain. The two of us, can we keep up? At this time, Han Dong took off the pig head butcher's skin. Dressed in Dr. Crow's attire, he held the short sword with the plague's aura on his right arm. Not two. There are three of us. As soon as he finished speaking, creak, creak, the sound of bones twisting could be heard. Two slender arms wrapped in energy emerged from Han Dong's back. The red coat appeared. His bare feet stepped on the ground. Some of his black hair floated in the air. His blood-red eyes were faintly discernible through his black hair. Winley was so scared that she almost screamed. She hurriedly hid on the other side of the vice captain. Such a timid character was completely incompatible with Wen Li's muscular body. Vice captain, what is this? Winley was so frightened that she stuttered. Miss Chun-Li, one of my summon creatures. Wow, stitching a summon creature? I seem to have heard my master mention it before. Vice Captain, you sure have a lot of tricks up your sleeve. You don't look like a rookie at all. Cut the crap. Get ready to fight. All right. All he had to do was give Wen Li instructions. Han Dong and Chun-Li had already worked together countless times, so there was no need for too many words. Chun-Li had been eager to fight for a long time, so she immediately charged forward. Coupled with the fact that Chun-Li was surrounded by energy and her own assassination abilities, she vanished into the shadows as Chun-Li charged forward. A second later, Chun-Li appeared in the shadow of an apprentice blacksmith. The kitchen knife in her hand was already thirsting for blood. Han Dong was not slow either. The double acceleration effect of the crow gloves and his shoes allowed Han Dong to move quickly in a manner that was close to flying. Wherever Han Dong passed, he could vaguely see some crow feathers that looked both real and illusory. The short sword in his hand only needed to make a shallow cut to infect the target's entire body. Against these blacksmith apprentices who had not surpassed the limits of human beings, they would soon be swallowed by the plague and develop various malignant complications in a short period of time. They would lose all ability to move and stop their physiological functions. Vice Captain is too powerful. I have to work harder and prove my worth. Activating the coral seal. A cool water element membrane enveloped her body. Holding the hammer in her hand, she quickly rushed forward. A head was knocked off with a single blow. Even if the blacksmith apprentices tried to block the blow with a sturdy armor plate in front of their heads in advance, they would only hear a loud sound of hammering. They would either be knocked off their hands, dented, or cracked. In the end, they could not escape the fate of having their heads smashed open. Wen Li's brute force was able to restrain anything fancy. Of course, there were also dangerous times. An apprentice directly poured hot molten iron on Wen Li. This molten iron was at least 1,535 degrees Celsius, so once it touched the skin, it was quite fatal. Wenli was focused on the battle in front of her and did not dodge in time, causing parts of her body to come into contact with the molten iron. Unexpectedly, the molten iron only burned a hole in her clothes and did not affect her skin at all. Wenli was angry. After smashing the apprentice in front of her with her hammer, she grabbed the armor plate, turned around, and threw it in the opposite direction. Whoosh! The armor plate flew at high speed and cut through the waist of the apprentice, who splashed the molten iron, cutting him in half. Phew! 6 in this familiar environment of the blacksmith shop. My speed is not bad. I need to help the vice captain as much as possible. I can't always be a burden. Wenli took a deep breath to adjust her state of mind. When she raised her head again and prepared to continue fighting, she was suddenly stunned. Because there were no more targets, Wenli had taken care of 6. Currently, the remaining 30 apprentices in the blacksmith area had all lost their vitality and were scattered on the ground or melted into the molten iron. Wenli raised her head and saw a horrifying scene that resembled the Black Death during the Middle Ages. A medieval crow doctor with a short blade in his hand and his red-clothed female nurse leaned against each other. Around them lay a large number of patients who had been swallowed by the plague. 18. My speed is still a bit slow. Chun-Li was not satisfied with her performance. Right at this moment, a heavy iron door inside the blacksmith area opened. Blacksmith Atroth, with crimson skin, 2 natural devil horns, and a black blacksmith apron, appeared. His body was covered with perfect armor plates. The key on his waist was especially eye-catching. Chapter 237. Demon. When this family cadre blacksmith, Atroth, stepped out of the inner room, Han Dong immediately associated him with the demon in the conventional setting. Of course, this is not the movie world. The real demon will not disappear. This blacksmith evolved from a believer to a future inhuman. His iconic red skin and devil horns were the natural changes in his body during his evolution due to his worship of the devil. Atroth used to be an out-and-out Satan worshiper. His room was filled with items related to hell, and there was even a crazed act of worship in hell. When he was still a human, he specially made 2 long devil horns for himself to make his appearance more similar to that of a demon. The coming of the Dark Age fulfilled his wish. Such an extreme blacksmith quickly stood out among the ordinary believers. After advancing to an inhuman, he used such a good condition to modify his own form, so that he transformed himself into the demon image described in the book. The weapon in Atroth's hand was special. As the blacksmith in the manor, he created a perfect weapon in his eyes. Hellbone Fire. Chaos item. Chaos item, when used, will pollute the target and stack Crazy Point. Conversely, the wielder will also be affected. Type. Giant Hammer Origin. Blacksmith Atroth. Inhuman. Quality. Normal special effect. Bonefire. Crush. Bonefire. When attacking, there's a certain probability of spitting hell flame, additional fire damage, burning the target's body. Burning causes continuous damage. Inhibits wound regeneration. Crush. When attacking, there is a small probability of crushing the target's armor, minus 50% armor, and also causes AoE damage. Life within 2 meters will take 50% of the damage. Description: 80, 80, 80. Vice Captain. Is this the family cadre? He looks very powerful. Wenli clenched the hammer in her hand and continued to ask, "How do we deal with him? Let me hold the blacksmith from the front, and you guys sneak attack him from the back? No need." Vice Captain, did you come up with a good idea? I will arrange someone to deal with this blacksmith. We just need to watch. Huh? Wenli looked confused. When Han Dong said those words, Yi Zichen's eyes widened. Chun-Li, who was floating at the side, immediately became unhappy. Every time they encountered a slightly more powerful enemy, Han Dong would always be biased and not let her handle it. Actually, he wasn't being biased. Tugu's growth required him to fight against strong opponents and suffer. In addition, under the current circumstances, no one was more suited for this battle than Tugu. The blacksmith, Atroth, glared fiercely at the scattered apprentices. Slowly, he turned his yellow eyes to the intruders. The High Lord has already given the order to prepare for battle. I didn't think that you invaders would be able to invade my blacksmith district so quickly. I want to use your bones to create a weapon to eliminate the invaders." Atros stomped on the ground. The molten iron flowing on the ground of the blacksmith's area was shaken up by this step. A large amount of hot molten iron was about to fall on Han Dong and the others. Han Dong immediately took Miss Chun-Li back into the prison. At the same time, he released another recipient to withstand the molten iron that was over 1,000 degrees Celsius. "Vice Captain." Who knew? Wenli also rushed over at the first moment. She spread out her muscular arms and tightly hugged Han Dong from the front. She tried to use her body to block the molten iron. However, Wenli couldn't feel the heat from the molten iron on her back. "Miss Wenli, let go." Han Dong, who was tightly hugged, had his bones creaking. "Ah, okay." When Wenli let go, she realized that there was another person behind her. It was no longer the terrifying red-clothed big sister from before. Instead, it was a bald man wearing a black leather jacket with a saw embedded in his head. Following the appearance of this man, a large amount of fire appeared in the air. He didn't have any horns on his forehead, nor did he have red skin. He only had a pair of pitch-black eyes. However, when Wenli saw Tugu, she felt as if she was in lava. Sweat continuously seeped out from her muscles. This kind of heat was different from the heat in the blacksmith shop. It was a kind of high temperature that could burn the soul. Hell! Wenli couldn't help but spit out these two words. That's right. This was a man who truly came from hell. He was a demon in the true sense. The molten iron that fell on Tugu's body slid down by itself. It couldn't cause any harm to him. "Are you okay?" Demon language. Tugu's back was facing Han Dong as he asked with concern. "I'm fine. I'll leave this place to you, okay? Thank you for giving me this opportunity." Tugu was different from Chun-Li. What he longed for was not to fight, nor to kill, but to suffer. He was very grateful to his master for being able to obtain this kind of suffering. In contrast, the blacksmith Atroth, who worshipped Satan and yearned for hell, was stunned, because the person standing in front of him was a real demon. However, Atroth suddenly became excited and muttered to himself, "Oh, it's a real demon. That's right. This aura definitely belongs to a demon who climbed up from below. My chance is here. If I can kill you, I'll be able to extract enough demon blood from your body. I'll be able to complete the final transformation process. I'll become a true demon and reach the same level as a great demon lord. I'll be able to realize my greatest dream." Excitement. The blacksmith Atroth used all his strength and walked towards Tugu with heavy steps. Han Dong grabbed Miss Wenli and temporarily retreated to the edge of the blacksmith area. While lowering the temperature, he didn't want to be involved in the battle. Clang! The giant hammer heavily smashed down and hit Tugu's bald head. It smashed Tugu into the ground. At the same time, it also triggered the special effect of spitting flames, burning Tugu's entire body. "Ha!" The blacksmith laughed wildly. He reached out and placed Tugu down so that the giant hammer could hit Tugu's head with the largest contact area. It also triggered the special effect of crushing. Not only was the surrounding ground shattered, even cracks appeared on Tugu's skull. Wenli stared at this scene and was even afraid to look. "Vice Captain, your summoned creature may die if this continues. Can we go and help? Just watch. Every time Tugu fights, he likes to take a beating first and then slowly exert his strength. This kind of bad habit must be corrected after the training." Han Dong himself was also very helpless. Looking at this scene, it was indeed very dangerous. He felt that Tugu could die at any time. Once he sensed it through the master-servant relationship, Han Dong could feel that Tugu, the demon who took a beating, was enjoying this process. Boom! Boom! The giant hammer smashed down again and again, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. The blacksmith Atroth ridiculed without restraint. "This is too disappointing. Demons, is this all you can do?" Just as Atroth stopped and was about to check whether the target was dead or not, Tugu touched his cracked bald head and stared at the blacksmith with a strange expression. He opened his pitch-black mouth and spoke in English that wasn't very standard. Why did you stop? Chapter 238. Half an hour. The average temperature in the blacksmith area reached 108 degrees Celsius. Even close to the edge, it was more than 50 degrees Celsius. Han Dong and Wen Li's clothes were soaked with sweat. Fortunately, Wen Li was wearing a black vest. Otherwise, they would be in big trouble. Half an hour passed. The blacksmith area had undergone a huge change. A large number of iron chains pierced through the air. The molten iron gathered in the center. It was similar to a lava pool. Blacksmith Atrotha's body had been penetrated by iron chains. He hung in the air, ending his evil life. He was liberated in another form. As for Togu, because he was too reckless in the early stages, he was also seriously injured. He was soaking in the pool of molten iron for a long time. Since he left Old Dre Town, Togu hadn't taken a bath like this for a long time. When Li, who was leaning on the edge, couldn't believe the battle scene she had just seen. It was like a battle in the depths of hell. Two strength-type demons fought head-on. No matter how the bald demon was beaten or knocked down, he could always get up and continue to fight. It felt like he was exhausting his opponent to death. At the end of the battle, the blacksmith was exhausted. But Togu, who was full of scars, still maintained his normal state. He wanted to continue to be beaten. Deputy Captain, this is also your summoned creature. The stronger Togu was, the stronger Han Dong was. Wen Li even slowly felt a sense of worship in her heart. Yes, Han Dong grabbed Wen Li, who was in a daze, and walked to the center of the blacksmith area. Togu, do you want to continue to take a bath or go back to rest? Your injuries seem to be serious. Please let me continue to stay here. Such a bath opportunity is rare, demon language. Okay, I'll call you when the forging process is over. Because the blacksmith was killed, the equipment, Hellbone Fire, dropped normally. Because of the big difference in type, it couldn't be absorbed by Chun Li's kitchen knife. After thinking about it, he still gave it to Wen Li as a benefit. Wen Li, this thing should be suitable for you. No. Wen Li felt that she didn't contribute at all in this small boss battle. She didn't deserve to get the loot. Take it. I don't have any use for it. Weapons of chaos should have a miraculous effect in the Destiny realm. In the face of Han Dong's tough request, Wen Li nodded. Then, thank you, Vice Captain. It's just that I can't use it right now because I don't have enough resistance against corruption. I'm already operating outside the city, and I need to fight against corrupted life forms, so it's not a good idea to use such a double-edged sword. I can only put away now. Wen Li had heard about chaos weapons from her master. Because of the pollution property, it could greatly increase the chances of clearing the Destiny realm. Moreover, the weapon itself also had a special effect similar to the Weapon of Destiny. Well, take it back and use it later. Wen Li carried the giant hammer on her back with ease. In terms of weight, it seemed to be far less than her large backpack filled with various materials. It did not affect her movements at all. Come with me. The two of them entered blacksmith Atrotha's inner room. Inside, there were excellent blacksmithing equipment and various metal materials, which could be used to forge all kinds of basic equipment. Vice Captain, didn't you say there would be helpers? If I were to forge it alone, it would probably take me more than 5 hours. Wait a minute. There should be a group of blacksmith apprentices here. Han Dong easily found the secret compartment in the blacksmith's inner room through the eye. In the small room, on the iron bed, there were more than 10 blacksmith apprentices resting. That's right. In order to ensure that the forging process would not be interrupted, the blacksmith apprentices prepared a group of blacksmith apprentices and took turns to change shifts and rest. Carry out the basic enslavement. According to the knowledge recorded in the book, Han Dong could use the little magic to carry out basic enslavement on the lowest level and the weakest of the heretics outside the city. Buzz, at the moment when the little magic eye opened. This group of awakened apprentices couldn't move. Through visual corruption, it conveyed a kind of high-level knowledge, making these apprentices more obedient to the main body. This kind of basic enslavement could only be used on heretics who did not exceed the human category, and it would take a certain amount of time, so it was not suitable to be used in battle. Han Dong couldn't do it on a higher level. Forcefully enslaving them would even damage the eyeball. After a while, Han Dong brought the mighty group of apprentices back to the blacksmith's inner room to assist Wen Li in forging equipment. How long will it take to complete the forging? Wow, so many. In an hour. I thought there would only be 1 or 2 assistants. Okay, let's start working. Okay, there were specializations in the profession. As the blacksmith's hammer fell on the surface of the iron drill, bursts of hammering echoed in the inner room, and Wen Li's eyes also had a corresponding change. According to the appearance of the weapon recalled in her mind, she carried out the precise forging. Red ponytail, wheat-colored skin, muscular arms overflowing with sweat, absolutely focused eyes. For a moment, Han Dong was stunned, just like himself who had studied cell knowledge in the laboratory. It only took an hour. The weapons, armor, and other equipment similar to the third-year team, led by the Meat Shield Johnny, were all completed. The simulation was as high as 95%. It was difficult for onlookers to see the difference. Very good. Staring at such equipment, Han Dong's plan went one step further. Wen Li completely didn't understand why the vice captain wanted these imitation equipment. But she knew one thing. The vice captain must have some strange plan. Wen Li, stuff these equipment into your backpack. When the time is right, take them out and use them. Okay, where are we going next? Han Dong shook the blacksmith's key. On the 3rd floor of the ancient castle. Find a room that isn't too hot to rest. Tonight, we'll rest in the ancient castle. Okay. Han Dong's words sounded weird, and Wen Li appeared to be a little embarrassed. The ancient castle had 4 floors. However, the 1st and 2nd floors were connected together and could be moved up and down through the stairs. But if one wanted to go to the 3rd floor, they had to obtain the necessary keys from the family's cadres. Because the 3rd floor was designated as the office and resting area for the family's cadres, it also contained many secrets regarding the Stewart family and was considered an important floor. The structure of the building was completely separated from the floor below and could only be accessed through the keys carried by the family's cadres. As for the 4th floor of the ancient castle, it belonged to an even deeper area. Those who could move about in the 4th floor were the direct relatives of the great leader. Let's go. Togu returned to the prison to recuperate. Han Dong led Wen Li and walked out of the blacksmith's area. As they walked through the winding and disorderly corridors of the 1st floor of the ancient castle, they unexpectedly met another team that was investigating the ancient castle. Chapter 239. The castle itself occupied a large area, and the designer seemed to have deliberately designed the low-level passages to be particularly complicated. If they wanted to go to the stairwell from a blacksmith area, they had to go through a winding passage that was hundreds of meters long. After going up to the 2nd floor, they had to go to the central area of the 2nd floor and use the newly obtained blacksmith key to open the only staircase stone door that led to the 3rd floor. Only then could they reach the upper level of the castle. The probability of encountering obstacles during the journey was relatively high, but they didn't expect to meet a team of trainee knights. A team of 3. All members had reached the seed-breaking period. The points allocated to major professions have reached 5 points, not yet seed-breaking. The leader was a crusader with a standard figure, equipped with blood-red armor and exuding a heavy, murderous aura. The eyes exposed through the gap of the helmet were also blood-red. Just by looking at each other, Han Dong and Wen Li felt very uncomfortable. Countless evil creatures and monsters had died in the hands of this person. Not only this person, the 2 teammates behind him were also not easy to deal with. One of the students who majored in library looked even weaker than Han Dong. The arm exposed outside the sleeve was as thin as firewood. In his hand was a staff with a skull as the core. His whole body exuded a murderous aura. The other person was dressed as a typical assassin, wearing a dark skull mask. From the hair draped over her shoulders, her gait, and her figure, she should be a woman. This kind of encounter made Wenli a little scared, and she leaned sideways behind Han Dong. The Crusader leader asked kindly, "Aren't you the specially selected newcomers? Why are you here?" "Greetings, senior brothers and sisters. We just entered the castle area and encountered a sneak attack from the cadre level. We were accidentally separated from the rest of the team. I have been running in the passage with her, and I can't find the direction at all. Can you take the two of us? We just need to follow you out of the castle." Han Dong pretended to be frightened and lost in the passage in advance. With such a question, it was not strange at all. "We won't leave, and we will go to a more dangerous area. We don't have time to take you. You go down this path by yourself. When you encounter a fork, turn left. The door corresponding to the third fork will lead to the front hall area." "Thank you. There should be no threat in this passage, right?" "Not at the moment, but I'm not sure after a while." "Good. Thank you, senior." Han Dong held Wen Li's hand tightly and pretended to be in a hurry, but at the same time, he was trembling in fear. He continued to move forward and separated from the team as quickly as possible. Based on Han Dong's observation, Fang Qiu's expression changed drastically. The standards of these three people were very high, even higher than the team of the meat shield warrior Johnny. Furthermore, the three of them were not righteous knights. Once this group of people came looking for trouble, Han Dong's plan would be disrupted. Not long after the Han Dong duo left, the boy who looked like a necromancer used his magic staff to create a skull wrapped in netherworld ghost flames. Two gloomy eyeballs gradually grew out of the skull's eye sockets. Similar to the vision provided by the owner, it was a detection method. He tossed out the skull and immediately chased after them. The Blood Knight in the lead spoke softly. "You need to complete the regional mission to obtain the qualifications to enter the castle. This place was located at the back of the ancient castle and was quite far from the front hall. Even if they were separated due to the sneak attack, they wouldn't have come here. This group of newcomers doesn't seem to be simple." The necromancer apprentice from the library opened his mouth and spoke. "Among this group of newcomers, there's a junior who has a good relationship with the library's deputy director, Hera. His name is Martin. It's a pity that I didn't get to meet him. Otherwise, I would have liked to have a good chat with this kind of genius." The three of them walked forward for a while and arrived at the blacksmith district. When they opened the door, they only saw the scattered apprentices, but they couldn't find the blacksmith's corpse. Almost at the same time, the necromancer apprentice frowned. "Captain, the skull I released was discovered and destroyed by that kid who pretended to be a fool. According to their route, the front hall is very close to the front hall. The probability of going to the front hall is very small, so it should go to the second floor. This group of newcomers really isn't simple. We need to speed up a bit. If we meet this group of newcomers again, we need to spend some time chatting with them about the ancient castle." "No problem, Captain." The necromancer apprentice had already sent out a free arm to collect bone materials from the blacksmith apprentices. Every extra corpse would increase the apprentices' fighting strength. "So dangerous? Is this the elite team of third-year students? If they find out that I have the blacksmith key on me, things will become quite troublesome. I need to introduce this factor into the plan. If I meet them again in the ancient castle, I will definitely be targeted." Holding the skull that had been cut open, Han Dong frowned as he sensed the remaining aura of the dead souls inside. Meeting such a small team of knights would, to a certain extent, increase the overall difficulty of the operation, and variability would affect the whole plan. "That was Blood Knight, Lucius," Wenli said timidly. "You know him?" Yes. I've learned about the apprentice knights who entered the school with excellent grades. This Lucius is very famous. Like you, he entered the school as the best apprentice crusader, and the dean thought highly of him. It's rumored that the Scarlet Knights had already sent out a recruitment order to him in advance." "Yes. Vice Captain, we must not clash with them. Let's avoid them as much as possible." "It depends on the situation." Han Dong finally found the stairs to the second floor. He repeated the same trick. During the forging process, Han Dong also made some changes to the blacksmith. After passing through the corridor and reaching the second floor, He put on the blacksmith skin and completed the process with camouflage. As blacksmith atroth, they went straight to the central elevator. Along the way, they encountered all kinds of guards wandering in the area, as well as several special butlers who went in and out of the walls like ghosts. However, they could not see through the disguise. Asterisk click. Asterisk the key was inserted into the stone door. Following the only staircase that only officers and family members were allowed to enter, they successfully arrived at the upper level of the ancient castle. The narrow passage in the lower level became spacious here. A red carpet was spread on the ground, and both sides of the passage were illuminated by luxurious candlesticks. There was also an eyeball device at the top that monitored the real-time situation in the passage. Han Dong was very interested in such an eyeball. It was necessary to find its main body. Maybe it could improve Han Dong's little magic eye. He found the door with a troth written on it and successfully sneaked into this private room. This place was no longer monitored by the eyeball. Wow, it's so hot. They hurriedly took off the thick and still warm blacksmith skin. Along the way, the two of them were sweating profusely from the heat. Fortunately, this blacksmith's bedroom was a normal European style and not a scorching blacksmith's room design. There was also a large private bathroom for the two of them to use. Chapter 240. Based on the situation in the corridor of the upper zone, we should be the first team to arrive here. It's almost evening. Even if the other teams kill a family member and obtain the key, without a map, they won't rashly enter the upper zone. The other teams will inevitably return to the town first and continue tomorrow. Our goal for today has been achieved. Let's rest in this room for the night. Tomorrow may be very tiring. Leaving aside the group of third-year students that they met halfway, the overall plan could be carried out smoothly thanks to the camouflage ability given by the faceless skull. First team, what about the captain and the others? Wenli was a bit confused. She didn't expect the progress to be so fast. The captain and the others will also leave. Only the two of us will stay in the castle for the night. Not only that, we will also take advantage of the map to be at the front until the Grand Lord meets. Miss Wenli, please be mentally prepared. Okay. Wenli clenched her teeth and nodded slightly. Looking around the blacksmith's bedroom, it was decorated in a European aristocratic style. The floor was covered with a luxurious wool carpet, and the wall was inlaid with candles. The 3-meter-wide bed took up a lot of space. At the same time, it was equipped with a separate bathroom. Apart from some decorations and books that believed in Satan, the room was not bad. Since she just came out of the blacksmith's skin, Wenli was completely wet. Naturally, the window couldn't be opened. Otherwise, her identity might be exposed. There was only one way to cool down. Vice Captain, I'm going to take a shower first. Remember not to close the door. Okay. Wenli's cheeks flushed red when she heard this. Because we can't be sure if there's a mechanism in the bathroom. If something unexpected happens while you're taking a shower, it's easier to communicate with the door open. Then don't peek. I won't. Han Dong didn't have any other thoughts. He wasn't interested in this at all. Wenli held a set of loose pajamas in her hands. When she entered the bathroom, she leaned against the door and secretly peeked at the vice captain who was sitting at the head of the bed. She wanted to remind him again, but she swallowed it back down. Wenli had never been alone in a room with the opposite sex. Not to mention that she had to completely open the door while taking a shower. There was no privacy or sense of security. Vice Captain is different from the others. He definitely won't. The round bathtub was filled with cool well water. When Wenli took off her sweat-soaked singlet and leather pants, she would glance at the door from time to time. As soon as she put down her clothes, she immediately stepped into the bathtub and submerged her entire body into the cold well water. Wow, so comfortable. Wenli's eyes were glued to the door as she leaned against the side of the bathtub. As time passed, the discomfort gradually faded away, but Wenli had a very strange psychological change. Vice Captain is really amazing. It's like he can predict many things in advance. Everything is under his control. Speaking of which, the Vice Captain should like girls with thin arms and legs like Mia, right? A muscular girl like me shouldn't be too interested. Slowly, Wenli even looked forward to Han Dong suddenly appearing at the bathroom door. Wenli's cheeks flushed red when she suddenly realized the problem with her thoughts. She submerged her head into the pool and tried to calm herself down. Just like that, the shower ended. Wenli, who had changed into a set of loose linen pajamas, did not see the scene she had imagined. She walked out of the bathroom barefoot. Wenli found that the vice captain was still sitting at the head of the bed. His fingers were drawing on the wall, as if he was silently making arrangements and calculations. Vice captain, I'm done showering. Okay. Han Dong jumped out of his hall of thought and came up with 2 additional plans to deal with emergencies. However, when Han Dong turned his head to look at Wenli, who had just come out of the shower, he could not help but be surprised. Her wet, fiery red hair was draped over her shoulders, and her loose linen pajamas covered most of her muscles. In terms of appearance, Wenli was quite good. She was between cute and delicate. Of course, once her 8-pack abs were exposed, there would be a different feeling. Seeing Han Dong staring at her, Wenli bit her lower lip slightly and looked to the side. She was very embarrassed. While she was in a daze, Han Dong had already entered the bathroom. Splash! Hearing the sound of him entering the water, Wenli, who came back to her senses, actually had the idea of peeking at the vice captain taking a shower. Wow, what are you thinking seriously? Wenli's face was red as she completely buried her body in the soft and huge bed. That's right. How am I going to sleep tonight? There's only this one bed. Thinking of this, Wenli's blood rushed to her head again. Her brain could not think normally, and her 2 legs kept kicking. Wenli, as Han Dong, who had just finished showering, called out softly, Wenli, who was in an illusion, directly cried out. Then, she realized her problem and hurriedly covered her mouth. I'm sorry. It's fine. It's still early. I have something to ask you. Vice Captain, please ask. Hearing that he was going to talk about serious matters, Wenli immediately threw away all the fantasies in her mind. Kneeling on the bed, she looked at the vice captain with an obedient and serious face. Your body seems to be very special. Can you tell me a little about it? If it's inconvenient, it's fine if you don't say it. Wenli shook her head. It's not inconvenient. However, vice captain, you must keep it a secret from me. After all, Master said that before I become an official knight, I can't tell anyone about the secrets of my body. Yes, I will keep it a secret. My body is related to my father, but I don't know who my father is. My earliest memory is in the blacksmith shop. I also grew up with Master. I had never seen my parents. Master also didn't let me ask. Even if I mention it, I will be beaten. Speaking of this, Wenli's eyes became slightly red. It seemed that talking about her parents was a taboo. Father? Yes. The body that has been strengthened through the destiny space has hereditary properties. Just like Captain Abel, he has the body of 100 beasts. I have inherited my father's muscle fibers. Since I was young, my strength has been far greater than others. Moreover, the density of the muscle fibers in the body can be continuously increased through various kinds of training. Working in the blacksmith shop is the best way to train. The high temperature can make the muscle cells active. All kinds of high-intensity forging work can make my body strengthen to the greatest extent. Currently, I can barely control the muscle fibers and make them gather in a certain area to increase the explosive power. When attacked, the fibers will automatically compress and form a high-density defensive layer to resist all kinds of damage. That's about it. In addition, the muscle fibers also seem to be able to store oxygen. My physical strength is also much better than the average person. Unlimited muscle fibers. No wonder your body is so powerful. The myoglobin in the slow muscle fibers combines with the oxygen released by the red blood cells and plays the role of storing oxygen. The cross-sectional area of the fast muscle fibers is wide and the density of the myofibrils is relatively high. It provides an instant explosive power. The density of your muscle fibers is probably 10 times that of a normal person, or even higher. Wenli, who was sitting obediently on her knees, was completely dumbfounded by Han Dong's words. She tilted her head to one side, and the only thing missing was a question mark hanging above her head. Chapter 241. In the evening, Han Dong and Wen Li each slept on one side of the 3-meter-wide soft bed. Even though they were completely separated by the bedding, Wen Li still felt a little uncomfortable. "Vice Captain, are you asleep? Do you want me to sleep on the floor?" If it weren't for the large bed occupying a large area of the bedroom and the corridor being squeezed together, Han Dong wouldn't have to sleep together with Wen Li. After all, he could see that Miss Wen Li rarely came into contact with the opposite sex. No, I just can't sleep. Can I talk to you, Vice Captain? Vice Captain, you must have worked very hard to reach such a level and capture 2 powerful summon creatures, right? Master said that no one is born powerful. Every knight commander has his or her own hard work behind the scenes. Everyone seems to have a great dream and is willing to sacrifice their lives for human freedom. But I don't have such a dream, and I don't have enough awareness. It's just that Master gives me a certain amount of work every day, and I have to complete it. They say how beautiful the world outside the city is, but that's all in the past. I feel that it's not bad to spend the rest of my life in the Holy City. Vice Captain, do you have any wishes or ideals that motivate you? To live for myself. Isn't this reason enough? I'm a selfish person. I don't have any chivalry. If you want me to risk my life, I definitely won't do it. Huffed. Wen Li burst out laughing. Usually, when she chatted with the apprentices in the blacksmith shop, they would all talk about their great dreams, such as joining the Knight Regiment and sacrificing everything for the Holy City. It was the first time Wen Li heard Han Dong's answer. Just as Wen Li had some other thoughts in her mind, she tried to move her body closer to Han Dong, who was sleeping on the other side. Han Dong continued, "Like I said, I don't have any chivalry. We will encounter more danger in the castle. If Miss Wen Li makes a serious mistake and falls into a desperate situation, I will only protect myself. I may not have time to save you. So, it's better for you to rest early and replenish your physical and mental strength." Wen Li's heart trembled. She bit her lips and stopped leaning towards Han Dong. Her voice was slightly low as she said, "Okay, I'll be serious. I won't cause any trouble for the Vice Captain. Good night." "Good night," Han Dong deliberately said, such a straight answer. He didn't want the two of them to be too close. It was also because of this sentence that Wen Li stopped letting her imagination run wild and quickly fell asleep. At first, I thought that Wen Li was also in disguise. I didn't expect there to be such a person in this apocalyptic world. Seeing that Wen Li was completely asleep, Han Dong slowly sat up. He had no intention of sleeping. If he really needed a rest, he would have returned to his residence after obtaining the key. There was a reason why he chose to stay in the castle. If he wanted to successfully steal the title deed, he couldn't waste a single second. Han Dong had to move alone from night to dawn. But because Wen Li's character was somewhat timid, if she was left alone in the castle bedroom, she would inevitably be unable to sleep and would be on tenterhooks all night. Han Dong had to accompany her to sleep first, and then take the relevant actions alone. He had to ensure that Wen Li was in her best state when he started the operation tomorrow. Otherwise, the last step of the plan would not be realized. Disguise. Han Dong was not disguised as a blacksmith, but as a swollen doctor. He, who had an in-depth communication with the doctor, could achieve a high level of imitation in speech and action. Tonight's task was very simple. Obtain the method to go to the top floor of the castle. Squeak, squeak. Han Dong's 2 legs were split into multiple tentacles under the camouflage effect. A wave of polluted air also overflowed, and he left the room with a huge swollen head. Well, I didn't expect. This way of moving is quite comfortable. For the first time, Han Dong experienced the wonderful feeling of moving tentacles, fast and fast. He thought that it would take some time to get used to it, but the current movement was as smooth as silk. The human body is flawed to begin with. Isn't turning into tentacles a kind of evolution? Before leaving the room, Han Dong deliberately left a letter for Wen Li to avoid falling into a panic when she woke up in the middle of the night. As he wriggled along the upper zone's open red carpet corridor, some of the patrolling guards took the initiative to greet the doctor. According to the map's description, I can only go to the fourth floor through a restricted corridor. Only the Great Lord's family and his personal butler can pass through. It just so happens that this personal butler lives on the third floor. Dong! Dong! Han Dong knocked on the wooden door that had the sign Housekeeper Barbara Priesti hanging on it. Creak! The door opened by itself, and a very oily smell overflowed from inside. It felt as if Sher Fong had stepped into an oil refinery. This butler is mainly responsible for the Great Lord's nutrition. Han Dong had already mentally prepared himself. Doctor, why are you looking for me so late at night? Who would have thought that the voice that came from the inner room was actually a soft female voice? Han Dong mimicked the way the professor spoke. There's a problem with the supply of nutrients from the zombie factory, and I wish to discuss it with you. Furthermore, there are a large number of invaders at the graveyard area, and I urgently need some powerful nutrients. Come in. Han Dong pushed the door open. A strong, oily smell assaulted his senses. This bedroom was 3 times bigger than the blacksmith's room, which showed that there was a difference in the status of the clan's cadres. There was only a small candlestick hanging from the ceiling of the huge bedroom, and the light in the room was dim. Squeak, 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 sound of liquid squeezing, a kind of viscous oil constantly overflowed from the walls on both sides. Even the ground was covered with a thick layer of oil, which was in a semi-solidified state. It was very easy to slip on foot. Han Dong, who relied on his tentacles to move, was fine. Most importantly, the aura emanating from the depths of the room was stronger than that of the barber and blacksmith. As expected, he's not easy to deal with. He should be considered a high-level cadre. The big bed was empty. This nutritionist-cum-personal butler was making nutritional supplements in a separate study. When he wriggled to the door of the study, a strange scene appeared in front of Han Dong. The study was more like a nutritional oil refinery room. Some ghouls with good flesh would be sent here, and this nutritionist would be responsible for refining ghoul living oil that contained high nutritional value. A woman was using a candle to carefully bake the skin. Barbara, long time no see. Doctor, I'll be frank. Recently, the Great Lord's body has been deteriorating rapidly, and he needs a large amount of nutrients. Your factory can't have any problems. Otherwise, the Great Lord may use you to refine oil. Chapter 242. Nutritionist-cum-personal butler. Barbara Priesti. In such a dim environment, her skin still had an oily luster. Animal oil and animal fat. In the notes on the map given by the doctor, there was a description of Barbara with an asterisk. This oily woman must be careful. She is very difficult to deal with. In Han Dong's mind, it was an extremely fat woman, who knew that the situation in front of him was completely different. Long black hair that reached her waist. Perhaps it was because refining oil was a relatively hot process, but Barbara was only wearing a corset and a pair of shorts. Her slender waist, slender arms, and long legs were exposed, and they glistened with oil under the candlelight. Such a slender figure surprised Han Dong. After all, this was a woman who dealt with oil all day. Overall, Barbara's oily and smooth skin looked as if it had a layer of wax. She had deliberately sealed all the oil in her body to prevent it from being expelled through her pores. Her body was greasy and inconvenient to wash. There was only one goal in tonight's operation plan. He wanted to obtain a part of Miss Barbara's body and use it to disguise himself. He wanted to use her identity to go to the top floor of the ancient castle. Han Dong replied with a smile, "Don't worry, the high-quality fat ghouls will be delivered on time. I've already written a letter regarding the situation of the ghoul factory. I hope that Miss Barbara can bring it along when she replenishes the great feudal lord's nutrition." Put on the table. Okay. Han Dong held the letter and stepped into the oil refining room. The rich oil inside floated in the air in molecular form, and Han Dong's skin was also covered in a layer of oil. What was even stranger was that the oil on the wall reflected distorted human faces, and there were even tentacles dripping with oil in the mouths of the human faces. The pollution index in the oil refining room was terrifyingly high. This indirectly meant that this woman was very difficult to deal with. When he placed the letter, Han Dong glanced at the woman's side profile. Her delicate face was like an oil painting, and it made Han Dong feel as if he was looking at a master's wax figure. Other than the eyeballs, the rest of her body seemed to be fabricated. When he put down the letter and left, Han Dong deliberately slid his palm across the woman's shoulder, taking away a layer of grease. Once he was recognized by the faceless head, he could imitate the nutritionist and go to the 4th floor. Han Dong was just about to step out of the small study. Chirp, the flowing grease on the wall, quickly gathered towards the door, forming a grease door full of painful faces, blocking the way out. "Doctor, I suddenly thought of something that I need to ask you. Are you free?" The door was sealed, and such questions did not give Han Dong a way out. "I'm free. Come with me." Barbara stopped her oil refining work. When he got up, the wall in front of him melted away on its own, or perhaps it was more accurate to say that this wasn't a wall in the first place, but rather a temporary wall made of grease. The interior corresponded to a wax figure room. A large number of exquisite wax figures were lined up here, almost identical to real people. It felt like a dark version of Madame Tussauds wax museum. Han Dong remained silent. If he had any doubtful expression at this time, it was likely that his identity would be exposed. Staring at these wax figures, Barbara sighed. "Sigh, we are both researchers. You should understand my hard work. In order to allow my lord to eat normally and recover as soon as possible, I am immersed in the research of wax figure food every day, trying to make high nutritional value fats into wax figure food that is almost identical to humans. But my lord seems to dislike my work more and more in recent days, and the amount of food he eats is constantly decreasing. You also know that now is different from before. Where can I find humans? Although there are many human invaders coming to the manor this time, according to my lord's food intake, these humans can only eat for 10 days to half a month at most. I have to find a way to improve the simulation of the grease wax figures so that my lord can regain his original appetite. Do you have a way? Just now I was verbally targeting you because I was in a bad mood. I hope you can understand." When Barbara said this, Han Dong understood. This private butler was mainly responsible for the High Lord's diet. Not only was it as simple as making concentrated grease, but it also needed to be processed according to the High Lord's taste and preferences. After seasoning, the grease would be made into wax figure food that resembled humans. It felt like artificial meat. Han Dong stepped forward and peeled off a wax figure. The internal structure surprised Han Dong. This Madame Barbara's craftsmanship was exquisite. Even the internal structure of a human body was almost perfectly molded. All the internal organs were presented in the form of wax figures, and the softness was just right. Han Dong replied in all seriousness, "No matter who it is, they will get tired of eating the same thing every day. Your problem is not the level of simulation, but the materials used. Why don't you try adding some fungus oil to the original grease? I happen to have some fungi on me, and my lord is a ghoul by nature. You should like this kind of seasoning very much. Fungus oil, why didn't I think of that?" Barbara, who was enlightened by Han Dong's words, was rather excited and approved of this method. In fact, this was not a difficult point to come up with. It was only because a person had been doing research alone for a long time that it was easy to become narrow-minded. This was also the reason why universities often held academic exchanges. Sometimes, a simple sentence from others could open up the narrow-mindedness in one's mind. Immediately after, with the help of the fungi released by Han Dong, Barbara made an improved grease. It took more than an hour to solidify it through a mold and create a brand new wax figure food. The taste did not change, but there was a refreshing feeling due to the consumption of the fungus oil. My lord will definitely like it. I'll send it to him now. Doctor, thank you. Madam Barbara, can I go with you? If my lord doesn't like it, you can explain that this is my suggestion. It's also convenient for me to report the factory to the High Lord in person. Barbara was applying oil makeup. She had to look her best when meeting the High Lord. All right, it's the High Lord's supper time now. Follow me. Okay. Han Dong was secretly delighted. With such a great opportunity, he could find out the route and method to the main hall in advance. The difficulty of tomorrow's operation would be reduced by half. But there were still risks. When reporting the factory situation to the High Lord, there was a chance that his identity would be exposed. After applying oil makeup, Barbara used a device similar to a corpse cart to carry this brand new food to the top floor of the ancient castle. She then used a secret elevator hidden in the study to reach the main hall. On the large throne, the Ghoul Lord Stewart was sitting paralyzed. His entire body was connected to a large number of infusion devices. Due to the death of his barber, he had not taken care of his hair for 2 days, causing a large amount of white hair to fall to the ground. Chapter 243. Barbara was pushing the waxen food. She walked barefoot on the carpet in the corridor, leaving greasy footprints with every step she took. It had to be said that if the greasy skin was ignored, the nutritionist herself was still very good-looking in body. In Han Dong's eye observation, under the nutritionist's greasy skin, there was an extremely compressed body hidden. Barbara's body was sealed inside through the greasy outer layer. Due to the high degree of compression, Han Dong could not see what the nutritionist looked like. The only thing he could see was the endless grease. Under Barbara's lead, they entered the family staircase. But there was a problem with how to enter the family staircase. The nutritionist was not equipped with the corresponding key. She just inserted her finger into the stone door keyhole that sealed the staircase. Through the grease configuration, the keyhole was filled and the stone door was opened. Without the nutritionist's guidance, it would be troublesome to enter the staircase. In this way, they came to the family area on the top floor of the castle. It was empty. Han Dong thought that this floor would be a scene of children and grandchildren, with 3,000 beauties. However, the top floor was filled with a sense of death, in sharp contrast to the luxurious family cadre's residence on the 3rd floor. The eerie and dark aisle. A large number of white rags hung in the air. The old wooden doors on both sides of the aisle creaked due to the breeze. Some old oil paintings of women were still hanging on the wall, but the faces of the portraits were either torn or had no eyes, or were abnormally hideous or distorted. It really felt like entering a haunted castle. Han Dong naturally did not ask much about the situation above. He calmly followed Barbara to the study area. "Doctor, you haven't seen the Lord for a while, right?" "Yes. The Lord is not in a good mood recently. When you go down later, don't rush to explain about the factory. Wait until the Lord is full and then slowly talk about it. Once the Lord is angry, it will be very troublesome." Since Han Dong helped to make the greasy food, Barbara's tone became much friendlier. "Yes." Barbara moved the bookshelf on the right, the 3rd row, and the 17th book, and removed the corresponding stone to reveal the keyhole hidden in the wall. She also inserted her finger into it. With the sound of gears, the bookshelf and the wall moved away. An old elevator appeared, bringing the two of them to the main hall of the ancient castle where the Great Lord resided. He was about to meet the final target of this training. The Great Lord might have already reached the level of hybrid demon, so the danger was self-evident. However, Han Dong remained calm. He tried his best to recall the doctor's words and actions in his mind. He could not afford to make any mistakes. Clack, clack, clack. The gears were completely stuck, and they had reached the bottom. Main hall, on the iconic 8 load-bearing stone pillars, there were many candlesticks made of skulls. On the huge stone throne in the center, the great ghoul, Lord Stewart, was slumped on top of it. The infusion tube connected to the back of his head corresponded to a bag of light yellow and pink liquid. It could activate brain cells and ensure that his thoughts were clear and his consciousness was stable. The infusion tube connected to the heart corresponded to a vat of distilled essence oil of ghouls. All the muscles in his body were connected to a small tube that corresponded to a type of black agent. A small injection could activate the muscle tissue and ensure the activity of the muscle cells. As seen before, the Great Lord needed a large amount of medicine at any time to ensure his body's condition. This was not the ruler that Han Dong had expected. The Great Lord looked powerful, but in reality, he gave off a feeling that he was on the verge of death. It was as if he had been squeezed dry. Of course, if one did not look at the medicine and only observe the Great Lord's body, it was still quite shocking. He was about 5 meters tall, dark skin and very obvious muscle contours. His bones were completely exposed due to hyperplasia. A thick and dense layer of white bone armor covered the surface of his body, mainly covering the muscles, such as the 8 abdominal muscles corresponding to the 8 bone layers, giving off an indestructible feeling. The Great Lord's metabolism was abnormally high. He had not trimmed his hair for only 2 days, and his white hair was already dragging on the ground. His 1-meter-long claws rested on the armrests of the stone throne. On the back, which was blocked by the stone throne, there were a large number of gear auxiliary devices embedded in it to stabilize and strengthen the Great Lord's spine region. In terms of appearance, he was indeed powerful. However, when he saw this sickly Great Lord, the first thing that came to Han Dong's mind was the mother. The family members did not need medicine to support their bodies like he did. Why would the Great Lord, who ate the best and was treated the best, be like this? Moreover, he had to stay in the main hall 24 hours a day. There must be some unknown secret here. My lord, your supper is here. Today's supper has slightly changed the ingredients. I hope you like it. Barbara brought the cart in front of the Great Lord. His white hair swayed. Click, click, click. The sound of gears came from his back. Through the responsibility of this additional equipment, the Great Lord's back was supported, allowing him to slowly sit up straight. When he stared at the wax food on the cart that was exactly the same as usual, his soybean-sized pupils did not seem to have any sense of anticipation. He slowly pierced the wax with his nails and ate by skewering it. He opened his huge mouth full of sharp teeth and bit down. Smack! The wax food refined from fat exploded in his mouth like a pissed meatball. Unlike the pure, greasy taste of the past, today's fat had an additional fragrance. The Great Lord's eyes slowly became spirited, and his eating speed also correspondingly increased. When she saw this scene, the private butler, Barbara, was very excited. She had never seen the Great Lord with such a good appetite. Because she was too excited, Barbara tiptoed and kissed Han Dong's cheek. A circle of greasy lip marks left on Han Dong's cheek. It was very uncomfortable. Barbara, it tastes good. I need another one. After the Great Lord ate an entire wax figure in a short period of time, he seemed very dissatisfied. Hearing such a request, Barbara was so excited that part of her skin was completely cracked and hot oil flowed out. The meaning of her existence was to take care of the Great Lord. Good. The doctor is involved in the food production this time. I need the doctor to accompany me. However, the doctor seems to have something to report to you. The soybean-sized pupils turned to Han Dong, and a wave of pressure swept over Han Dong's body. This feeling was somewhat similar to the fallen Beck. Doctor, do you have something to report to me? Han Dong had already memorized the report written by the doctor. He reported the current damage to the factory and the need for reinforcements. However, when Han Dong finished his report, he received a strange response. Doctor, come here for a moment. Chapter 244. Exposed? Not necessarily. Han Dong was sure that there was absolutely no problem with his work report. As for the disguise, it was even more impossible for there to be a problem. After all, even the doctor himself found it difficult to distinguish between the real and the fake. When he saw Han Dong pretending to be himself, he was shocked speechless. If one were to trace the origin of the faceless head, it seemed to be related to a certain old king. Naturally, its level was far higher than the Lord. Han Dong stabilized his mind. His expression was calm, and wriggled his tentacles towards the giant stone seat where the Great Lord sat. He was getting closer. Some of the details of the Great Lord's characteristics were also clearer. The bone layer covering the surface of the body was terrifyingly dense. Such a defensive layer was difficult to break. When fighting with the Great Lord, one must find a gap in the bone layer or some parts that were not covered by the bone layer. Otherwise, it would be difficult to hurt him. Also, under the white hair, there was a face as old as a fierce beast. The yellow bean-sized eyes stared at Han Dong. Click, click, click. The gears inlaid in the spine began to turn, and the mechanical auxiliary device pushed the Great Lord forward. The terrifying face was close to Han Dong, less than a finger away. With such an oppressive gaze, even an experienced apprentice knight would definitely make some small movements. But Han Dong, who had seen all kinds of big shots and even spied on the yellow robe, was completely indifferent. Han Dong, who had faced Captain Keeman directly, was completely indifferent. Imitating the way a servant should act, he lowered his head slightly and listened to the Great Lord's orders. How is the recent production of The Mother? All indicators are normal. The screening rate of high-quality ghouls is above the passing line. There has been no unstable situation. The Great Lord seemed to be relieved. Click, click, click. The gears moved his body back and leaned against the stone chair to rest. Okay, you go up and make food first. The taste is very good. The long-lost hunger is coming again. As for the ghoul factory, as long as the human intruders don't enter the main production room, it will be fine. I allow you to transfer 2 officers to ensure the safety of the production room. Thank you, Great Lord. Han Dong discovered a certain detail from such a conversation. A smile flashed across his face. Just like that, the first meeting with the Great Leader passed without any mishaps. He followed Barbara to the elevator and left the main hall. After returning to Barbara's room, Han Dong consumed a portion of his energy and released a large bottle of bacterial fluid through his right arm. Barbara only needed to add the fungus in the right ratio during the food preparation process and didn't need Han Dong's help. The fungus was enough to make food for a few days. Just as Han Dong was about to leave, plop, a force acted on Han Dong's body, pushing him down onto the soft bed. Greasy and close-fitting, Madame Barbara directly pressed herself against Han Dong's body and reached out to stroke his swollen head. Thank you so much for today. Doctor, let me express my gratitude. Although Barbara's outer shell was not bad, it was too greasy. Just by sticking to Han Dong's body, the overflowing grease soaked Han Dong's clothes. It was indeed a bit heavy. Wait a minute. I didn't bring things today. In addition, the factory still needs my supervision. Next time, seeing that Han Dong didn't appreciate her kindness, Barbara naturally lost interest. I won't be in the mood next time. However, I still want to thank you for today. If the factory is invaded seriously, I can go down and help you. Thank you. After leaving the greasy room, a refreshing feeling swept through his body. After such an experience, Han Dong probably wouldn't want to touch meat for a few days. When he quietly returned to the blacksmith's room, Miss Wenli was still sleeping soundly on the bed, snoring continuously. Because Han Dong exuded a strong, oily fragrance, the entire room was filled with such a smell. Wenli, who was sleeping soundly, stopped snoring after a while. Saliva flowed from the corner of her mouth, and she whispered in her sleep, "It smells so good." Han Dong, who was soaking in the bathtub, recalled the desolate appearance of the family area on the top floor, the sickly state of the Great Leader, and the degree of concern for the mother. The mother's position in the manor is higher than I thought. However, this doesn't affect the progress of my plan. As long as Mia can succeed, it's fine. Whether it succeeds or not depends on tomorrow. Han Dong threw away the greasy clothes and lay back on the big bed. Perhaps it was because of the slight shaking of the bed, or perhaps it was because some of the grease that penetrated the skin was difficult to wash away. In her sleep, Wenli seemed to treat Han Dong as a big, delicious chicken leg. She slowly moved her body and leaned over. She reached out and hugged Han Dong. She even put her thighs on him. So heavy, Han Dong tried to move, but found that Wenli hugged him even tighter. If he moved again, he was likely to be bitten by Wenli. Forget it. Let's just sleep. Han Dong used the fungal layer in his body as a support and slowly adapted to Wenli's weight. He fell asleep just like that. The next day, It was also the fourth day of the training. Although no sunlight would shine through the window, Wenli woke up on time because of her biological clock. Her head was completely leaning on Han Dong's shoulder. There was even a pool of saliva flowing into Han Dong's shoulder. Not only that, Wenli's hands were also hugging Han Dong tightly. Her legs were also tightly clamped around him. The fragrance of meat from an unknown source drifted in the air. As luck would have it, Han Dong also woke up at this time. He opened his eyes and just happened to look at Wenli. For a moment, Wenli's cheeks turned as red as her hair. About 10 minutes passed. Wenli's face was red as she squatted in the corner and organized her huge backpack. She didn't dare to talk to Han Dong at all. As for Han Dong, he leaned against the bed and closed his eyes to rest. He seemed to be thinking about some problems and had no intention of taking action for the time being. After waiting for a while, Wenli couldn't hold it in anymore. She asked with a red face, Deputy Captain, when are we leaving? I've already packed my things. No hurry. It's not time yet. Oh. Wenli sat silently on the bed and ate beef jerky alone. Han Dong was actually waiting for a turbulent time. Yesterday, the castle area had been fully opened. Some elite teams had already made a preliminary exploration of the lower castle area and even killed the cadres to obtain the key. Today, they would definitely conduct a deeper exploration. The castle area would be in full battle. Boom! A loud noise was accompanied by a violent shaking. It seemed to have touched the foundation. There were a lot of footsteps in the corridor. A large number of guards and family cadres who were awakened rushed to the lower castle area to check the situation. Han Dong was also shocked by such a violent shaking. One had to know that the entire castle was quite spacious. It would not be easy to shake the entire castle. When the footsteps in the corridor gradually disappeared, Han Dong got up. Wenli, let's go. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.